Chapter 694. Under the attentive gaze of the surrounding crowd, Shuang took a step forward after unsheathing his sword, turning into a mirage. Bang! His body was covered in flames, which formed an arc. Clearly, his speed had reached an extremely terrifying level. Even the thunder flame has appeared. The eyes of many clan members, guards, and maidservants shone brightly. The Seventh Highness was even more excited. Only a Stage 4 world deity could make the thunder flame appear by relying on flying speed. This was a rare sight for many of them. The 9 celestial demonic puppets roared and pounced at the same time. Hua! Immediately after, a blood-red thread streaked across the sky. It twisted 3 times in midair, then cut through the necks of the 9 celestial demonic puppets. Who? Dongbua Shuiying's figure appeared in the distance, casually sheathing his sword into the sheath on his back. At this moment, the necks of the 9 celestial demonic puppets were split in half. The internal workings of the puppets were affected, and all of them stopped moving. Only then did the wounds on their necks gradually heal. Did I win? Dongbua Shuiying looked at the second elder. What a powerful sword technique! The second elder's eyes brightened. He nodded and said with a smile, "No wonder foreign elder Feishue wants to learn the 6 sword styles of Sever." The 2 foreign elders and the other 2 elders who were merely Stage 4 world deities were also shocked. They could tell that based on his fighting power alone, he was definitely not an ordinary Stage 4 world deity. Perhaps, his strength could rival that of an ordinary almighty. However, in this world, it was common for a Stage 4 world deity to rival an almighty because absolute arts were easier to learn. His strength is probably comparable to our clan's elders, the 2 elders thought. Foreign elders had to contribute greatly to the clan in order to learn an absolute art. However, the clan's elders could learn it directly. Perhaps he is still hiding his strength. We can't underestimate him. They made their judgment. Tonight, prepare a banquet and invite foreign elder Feishue, the second elder said in a clear voice. Many people on the scene were somewhat excited. Defeating 9 celestial demonic puppets with 1 sword was too rare. Amazing, too amazing. The eyes of the 7th Highness, who was still a child, lit up. He could still clearly remember that blood-red thread that turned 3 times in midair. That was the trajectory of the sword. He felt that the trajectory of the sword was even more beautiful than the rainbow in the sky. I want to learn the sword, so I'll learn from this foreign dignitary Feishue. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it had been more than a year since Dongbua Shuiying joined the Chung family. Lord Feishue. The guard of the Compendium Pavilion said respectfully. Dongbua Shuiying nodded slightly and walked in, beginning to flip through the books within the pavilion. Guest elders had a very high status, and there were many places in the Chung family that they could enter. For instance, the hidden library had many cultivation techniques, world deity-ranked secret techniques, ancient arrays, and many more. Guest elders were free to browse through them. Of course, they wouldn't be able to come into contact with the core of the entire clan. For example, Dongbua Shuiying couldn't get his hands on the ultimate art of the Tao of Slaughter, the 6 Sever sword style that he wanted the most. He had to make a huge contribution. 3 holy lands, 9 great clans. Dongbua Shuiying muttered to himself as he flipped through the books. For more than a year, he flipped through many books, and occasionally chatted with the other guest elders and elders. Other than discussing the Tao, they would also talk about dangerous places, ruins, and many other things. They would also talk about the world situation. Because he had interrogated the Black Sky Palace Master, Dongbua Shuiying was able to talk about many dangerous places, so he wouldn't reveal any flaws. He even purposely said that he had been cultivating in seclusion and knew very little. Very soon, he found out that the strongest 12 superpowers under the heavens were the 3 holy lands and 9 great clans. They stood at the peak, ruling over the entire world. In this world, the 3 holy lands are unshakable. Next to them are the 9 great clans. The Chung family is one of the 9 great clans, and they have 4 powerful existences. Dongbua Shuiying thought to himself, however, they sure have a lot of absolute arts. The 9 great clans. Every clan had at least 2 absolute arts, and the most they had was 5 absolute arts. The 3 holy lands were even more impressive, and their foundations were unfathomable. With a single order, they could send their elites to the 9 great clans to learn the absolute arts, and the 9 great clans wouldn't dare to disobey them. From the clues, the 3 holy lands were extremely powerful, and they definitely had paragons. Ancestor Devil left behind the ancient star map and led me here. What's his motive? Dongbua Shuang guessed, the 3 holy lands are unfathomable, but there's no rush. I'll first learn the absolute arts of the Tao of Slaughter. From the information he gathered, he had never heard of the absolute arts of the Tao of Mirage. However, he had heard of 2 absolute arts of the Tao of Slaughter. One was the 6 sever sword styles of the Chung family, and the other was the great extinction scripture of the Talisman clan. Lord Feishue, take care. The guard greeted respectfully as Dongbua Shuang walked out of the library. Senior Feishue, Senior Feishue. A child's voice resounded. Dongbua Shuang touched his forehead and looked behind him helplessly. He saw a child running towards him with 2 maids following behind him. The child hurriedly said, Senior Feishue, please agree to accept me as your disciple. I really want to learn sword arts from you. 7th Highness, Old Ancestor has already arranged everything for you. Just listen to Old Ancestor and don't make things difficult for me. Dongbua Shuang said helplessly. This 7th Highness was the child of the Chung family's old ancestor, and his status was very special. Dongbua Shuang couldn't beat or scold him, and could only persuade him. After all, he still wanted to obtain the absolute arts through normal means, and not force his way through. He just needed to spend a little more time, and he had sufficient time. Ha ha ha, Brother Feishue, 7th Highness has his eyes on you. You should just accept him. A red-nosed man holding a wine flask walked over leisurely. Drunkard, if you don't want to accept a disciple, then stop talking nonsense. Dongbua Shuang berated. This drunkard was also a guest elder of the Chung family. I'm willing to teach, but 7th Highness doesn't like me. The red-nosed man laughed strangely. Senior Feishue, I'm very sincere. 7th Highness stared at Dongbua Shuang with his eyes wide open. I've said it before. As long as Old Ancestor agrees, I will accept you as my disciple. Dongbua Shuang said helplessly. Don't make things difficult for me. As he spoke, he moved his feet. South, he disappeared without a trace, running away faster than anyone else. Really, when have I, Dongbua Shuang, ever been in such a difficult situation, being forced into such a state by an 8-year-old child? Dongbua Shuang said helplessly. Actually, for the past year, this 7th Highness had been coaxing him. Dongbua Shuang quite liked this 7th Highness who wasn't arrogant at all, and was willing to accept him as a disciple. However, that Old Ancestor wasn't too willing. Old Ancestor wanted to send his son to the 3 great holy lands. One must know that there were 4 powerful existences in the Chung family, and the 3 great holy lands were even more impressive. If he didn't want to become the disciple of a powerful existence, why would he want to become the disciple of a stage 4 world deity? Old Ancestor wasn't willing. Father, I've said it before. I want to become the disciple of Senior Feishue. Other than Senior Feishue, I don't want anyone else to be my master. 7th Highness shook his head with all his might, refusing to agree no matter what. The purple-robed man who sat on the main seat felt helpless. As the strongest expert in the family, he really couldn't do anything to an 8-year-old child. You even have the chance to become the disciple of the sacred master, yet you don't agree and insist on becoming the disciple of a stage 4 world deity. The purple-robed man shook his head helplessly. Old Ancestor. The housekeeper beside him said softly, why don't we let 7th Highness stay in the family? The purple-robed man looked at the housekeeper. Firstly, even if His Highness enters the Holy Lands, it's hard to say if he can become the disciple of the Sacred Master. Secondly, Guest Feishue's swordsmanship is extraordinary, and his realm isn't any weaker than an ordinary almighty. Thirdly, isn't there still the old ancestor? In the family, the old ancestor can see His Highness at any time, and he can personally guide His Highness. The housekeeper said, moreover, it's been more than a year, and His Highness wants to become the disciple of guest Fei Xue no matter what. The purple-robed man nodded his head lightly. He was moved. In the family, he could indeed take care of his child at any time. Seventh Highness opened his eyes wide and looked at his father in anticipation. All right, I'll allow you to become the disciple of guest Fei Xue. The purple-robed man said. Ha ha ha, thank you, father. Seventh Highness happily flew over, pouncing onto the purple-robed man, hugging him and kissing his face. The purple-robed man couldn't help but laugh. Maybe his choice was right. The purple-robed man glanced at the housekeeper beside him and transmitted, "Go and tell guest Fei Xue that as long as he can guide my son to become a world deity, the 6 sever sword styles will be passed down to him." Yes. The housekeeper replied. Dongbua Shuang stared blankly at Seventh Highness, who was kneeling on the ground. Seventh Highness raised his head and shouted, "Disciple greets master." This. Dongbua Shuang was caught unprepared. The housekeeper beside him laughed. Guest Fei Xue, old ancestor has already agreed to let His Highness take guest elder Fei Xue as his master because of Seventh Highness. Dongbua Shuang blinked his eyes. He came to this world to investigate the secrets behind it. Who would have thought that not long after, he would accept a disciple? Done in the middle of the night. Sweat, it's already the middle of the night. Chapter 695. The butler even transmitted a message. Old ancestor said that as long as Seventh Highness becomes a world deity, honored guest Fei Xue will be able to learn the 6 sword styles of sever technique. Old ancestor is truly considerate. Dongbua Shuang smiled. He was also a father, so he understood the intentions of the Chung family old ancestor. Because of this, Dongbua Shuang had a good impression of this old ancestor. Master, please accept me as your disciple. Seventh Highness raised his head and looked at his master. Dongbua Shuang nodded lightly and sat down on a chair. He then said solemnly, "Since you have acknowledged me as your master, I will not spoil you. From today onwards, you are no longer the Seventh Highness, but Chong Yen. Yes, this disciple will accept any punishment without any complaints." Seventh Highness Chong Yen raised his head and said loudly. His childish voice was clear and melodious. "Kowtow and acknowledge me as your master." Dongbua Shuang ordered. Peng peng peng. Seventh Highness immediately kowtowed 3 times, "Disciple Chong Yen greets master." The butler at the side was slightly unhappy. This honored guest Fei Xue, Seventh Highness is too young to accept him as his master no matter what. That's why he was unable to accept him as his disciple. From today onwards, the true disciple will be taught by old ancestor personally. He is just a stage 4 world deity, how can he be compared to old ancestor? Who would have thought that the moment he accepted a disciple, he would put on the airs of a master? All right. Dongbua Shuang smiled and nodded, "You may rise." Seventh Highness hurriedly stood up. "Little 7, go and rest for today. Come and see me tomorrow morning." Dongbua Shuang ordered. He even addressed Seventh Highness as Little 7. Seventh Highness was filled with joy. He bowed respectfully like a little adult. Yes, this disciple will take his leave. He then left obediently, without any arrogance. The butler glanced at Dongbua Shuang, but he didn't say anything and followed the Seventh Highness. Dongbua Shuang smiled as he watched his little disciple leave. When Yi Qing first met me, he was about the same age as him. However, Yi Qing was living in poverty back then, and his body was small and skinny. In reality, he was much older than little Qi, and he was also much more sensible. This is the smallest kid I've ever come into contact with. 8 years old. He knew all kinds of etiquette and even how to read people's expressions. To say that he was immature, he was indeed very young and innocent. He was even coaxed by the Chung family and had never seen much of the dangers of the world. He is the child of Chongshi forefather after he became a powerful existence, and his talent is extraordinary. Teach him to become a world deity. Dongba Shuang did not think that it would be difficult. Time passed, year after year. The most doted, seventh highness of the Cheng family, Cheng Yan, was indeed very obedient and diligent. He followed Dongba Shuaying's guidance and cultivated step by step. Even though Chengshi forefather would also guide his son in the dark, Dongba Shuaying was too lazy to care about it. He just followed his teachings. As a paragon who had opened 2 Daos, Dongba Shuaying's understanding of the Tao was very deep, and he knew how to guide his son more effectively. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. Teacher. A white-robed young man with a sword on his back excitedly came to greet Dongba Shuaying. Dongba Shuaying, who was dressed in black and had a divine sword on his back, stood by the side. He was emitting a cold aura, but when he looked at his disciple, there was warmth in his eyes. Little Chi, seeing how confident you are, it seems you have improved. This disciple has completely mastered the light-chasing sword that teacher taught me. The white-robed young man said. Show me. Dongba Shuang stood by the side and ordered. Yes. Seventh Highness Cheng Yan immediately unsheathed the divine sword on his back and began executing his sword techniques. The sword light instantly turned into a ray of light, so fast that it left behind afterimages. Dongba Shuang watched silently and revealed a smile. Seeing his disciple continuously growing, he felt a sense of accomplishment. Now that he is already at the middle stage of the deity realm, it seems that becoming a world deity within 10,000 years is a little difficult. I'm afraid it will take several tens of thousands of years. Let's not talk about comparing him to me. Even compared to my third disciple Jia Yun, Little Chi's setbacks are far too few. But there's no helping it. Even though he was sent out to do some things, Chengshi forefather would also send experts to protect his son in the dark. At most, he would meet with some small setbacks, but he has yet to experience any true hardship. If he did not experience any hardships, how could he become something great? Since he already had a deity avatar, why would he still protect his son? Chengshi forefather naturally understood this logic, but he was always worried about his son, and could not help but send experts to protect him in the dark. In the Cheng family, the will of Chengshi forefather cannot be defied. I can't possibly go against him just because of a small matter regarding his followers. Dongba Shuang lightly shook his head. He had already tried his best to teach his son, and Chengshi forefather was also very satisfied. Because amongst his many children, 7th Highness Cheng Yan had the fastest cultivation speed. Chengshi forefather was much closer to Dongba Shuang, and had even personally said that the day 7th Highness Cheng Yan became a world deity, he would hand over his absolute art, the 6 sever sword styles. 3 holy grounds. Dongba Shuang thought. He did not waste the past 1,000 years. Because he had a close relationship with Chengshi forefather, they had discussed the Tao several times, and the 3 holy grounds were mentioned. From a few words, Dongba Shuang was able to deduce more. Although the 3 holy grounds are powerful, from Chengshi forefather's point of view, while they are wary of them, they are not completely defenseless. Dongba Shuang thought, according to the many words, the 3 holy grounds should have paragons, but there shouldn't be any rulers. If there was a ruler, with the strength of a ruler, Chengshi forefather and the others would have long become obedient grandsons. The gap between ordinary powerful existences and rulers was simply too huge. Therefore, the 3 holy grounds should not have any rulers. This deduction allowed Dongba Shuang to heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt that it was natural. Although it is easier to obtain cultivation techniques and absolute arts in this world, spreading them wantonly to the point where almost every mortal could obtain them, the world is ultimately only so big. There are only so many dangers and trials. Without enough clashes between experts, without enough tempering in dangerous situations, without guidance from even more powerful seniors like the Lake Heart Island, the 6 paths of Heavenly Wheel, the starting ground, and so on, it would be extremely difficult to even establish a Tao, much less become a ruler. Dongba Shuang had lived in this world for 1,000 years, and knew that this world was much weaker than the outside world. Even if one could obtain guidance from even stronger seniors in the outside world, and could head to other cosmos to temper themselves, with guidance from Blood Blade, Temporal Island Lord, and other rulers. It was still extremely difficult to become a ruler. Someone as outstanding as Monarch Green had reached a bottleneck in all three Daos, and was just a sliver away from breaking through. Even Pang Yi had only become a ruler after creating his final cultivation technique. Clearly, it was extremely difficult. In this world, the difficulty of becoming a ruler was more than 10 times that of the outside world. Standing there watching his disciple train, Dongbu Shuiying's thoughts drifted. He was thinking about his own matters. The more he understood about this world, the more appropriate he would be able to act. It would be too unjust to die in this world because of his recklessness. Many intelligence reports in the deity world and abyss stated that many experts died because of carelessness. Like the death of the two protectors from the ancestor mother religion, it was also due to carelessness, as they had underestimated Dongbu Shuang. Thus, Dongbu Shuang did not dare to look down on the strength of this world. "Teacher, how is it?" Seventh Highness Chong Yen looked at Dongbu Shuang. "Even if I have succeeded, don't you feel that your sword moves are not very coherent?" Dongbu Shuang chuckled and asked. Little Chong Yen felt awkward at that moment. He had done his best to train, so how could he care about the perfection of his sword moves? Continue training. Come and see me when all your sword moves are as one. Dongbu Shuang chuckled and ordered. Suddenly, his expression changed as he looked outside. "Amen? There is actually an enemy who dares to deal with the Chung family. Interesting. Star." Putting aside the threat of the Golden Fiend Fire Cloud ship, its appearance meant that the other party was the Heaven Fire Palace of the Three Holy Lands. Logically speaking, the Chung family was closest to the Heaven Fire Palace, so the Heaven Fire Palace should be protecting the Chung family. Why would they attack? I wonder which emissary it is. Chongsher Forefather raised his head and said with a clear voice. The three powerful existences elders also flew to his side. As for the Stage 4 World Deity Elders, Guest Elders, as well as a large number of disciples, guards and maidservants, all of them were looking at the scene in the sky with unease. Ha ha ha, it was accompanied by insolent laughter. 7 figures appeared below the flat warship. The golden-haired man in the lead sneered, "Old Chong, you don't even recognize me?" Chongsher Forefather and the other 3 felt that something was amiss. In front of them was a judge emissary and 6 law enforcers from the Heaven Fire Palace. A total of 7 powerful existences. One had to know that the Heaven Fire Palace had more absolute arts, and the average strength of their powerful existences was stronger than that of the Chung family. I hope you are Judge Sheng. Chongsher Forefather frowned. Why is Judge Sheng suppressing my clan's arrays? Don't talk nonsense. The golden-haired man sneered. Do you think no one knows that you have obtained that supreme treasure? Right now, you have 2 choices. 1. Hand over that supreme treasure. 2. I'll uproot your Chung family today. Chongsher Forefather was startled in his heart, but on the surface, he was furious. What supreme treasure? Who did you hear that from? Furthermore, Judge Sheng, you should know that we all have avatars. Our true bodies and avatars will not stay in the same place. It's easy for you to destroy this clan, but to kill the 4 powerful existences of my Chung family, that's impossible. He was also warning the other party. Also, does Left Palace Head know of your visit this time? Chongsher Forefather asked. I'm under the orders of Right Palace Head. The golden-haired man curled his lips. Do you think that with Left Palace Head as your backing, we won't dare to touch you? Chongsher Forefather felt sullen and helpless. One of the 3 great holy grounds, the Heaven Fire Palace, had its own internal factions. The main factions were the Left Palace Head and Right Palace Head. It was said that there was a 3rd faction that kept a lower profile. Hand it over. Otherwise, your Chung family will be gone. The golden-haired man coldly said. I really don't know what you're talking about. Chongsher Forefather sneered. Hand it over? How could he hand it over? That was his hope of breaking through to the Paragon realm. I do want to see if you have it on you. The golden-haired man sneered, kill for me. So. The 6 blood-robed men beside him charged down at the same time. Flames appeared on the surface of their bodies, and under their high speed, the flames were distorted into arcs. Those who offend my Chung family, die. Chongshi forefather was also filled with killing intent. The 3 powerful existence elders beside him also acted at the same time. Hong, a terrifying shockwave exploded in the sky. This world had an unseen law suppression. Speed was suppressed, and even the power of one's attack would be suppressed. Thus, the commotion wasn't too exaggerated, and was far from being comparable to the deity world and abyss. In addition, the clan protection array of the Chung family was still protecting the clan's cultivators while clashing with the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship. In the sky, that judge emissary was controlling the entire Holy Grounds Palace protection treasure, the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship, to assist him, suppressing Chongshi forefather who was originally stronger than him. Patriarch, we can't hold on any longer. The other 3 powerful existence elders were having a hard time. The overall strength of the 6 law enforcers was stronger than theirs, and with the advantage in numbers, the weakest 3rd elder was smashed into smithereens by an axe, and his body was soon destroyed. The remaining Grand Elder and 2nd Elder were having an even harder time. The 2 of them were doing their best to preserve their lives, and did not dare to retaliate. With the 2 of them working together, they were barely holding on. The 2 of you deal with them. We'll go deal with those brats below and destroy the entire Chung family. Very soon, the 4 blood-robed law enforcers charged downwards. Old Chong, your clan's 3rd elder is already dead. The Grand Elder and 2nd Elder can only hold on for a little longer. The golden-robed golden-haired male spoke as he fought, just obediently hand over that treasure. Why the need? Look, your clan's stage 4 world deities and honored guests are all dying in battle. Chongshi forefather felt incomparably sullen. This time, the right palace head of the Skyfire Palace had made ample preparations. The right palace head had even sent over their palace protection treasure, and almost all his subordinates were mobilized. A judge emissary and 6 law enforcers, their Chung family could not fight against them at all. I've only become an honored guest, and I've already met with such a situation. The red-nosed man, drunkard, who was drinking wine, had a bitter look on his face. Surrender, and we'll spare your life. A blood-robed law enforcer shouted. Since I've joined the Chung family, how can I admit defeat so easily? Drunkard raised his head. I do want to see how powerful the law enforcers of the Skyfire Palace are. You'll find out soon enough. The blood-robed law enforcer sneered. A moment later, Drunkard could no longer hold on, and his body was sliced in half by a blade. His eyes revealed a look of regret. The gap between us and powerful existences is truly not small. Very soon, Drunkard's body was completely destroyed, and he died on the spot. Other than 2 honored guests who turned and fled, the rest fought head-on. After all, everyone was just an avatar here. Even if they died in battle, they would only lose an avatar. Judge Sheng. Chongshi forefather's eyes were red as he looked at the one-sided battle below. After all, the 4 law enforcers were powerful existences, and they had the absolute arts of the holy grounds. Overall, they were much stronger than stage 4 world deities. For the same absolute art, like the luminous sun, stage 4 world deities could at most cultivate it up to the 4th volume of the 4th transformation. Those who did not have heaven-defying talent could only reach the 3rd transformation of the 4th volume. As for powerful existences, they could only cultivate it up to the 5th volume. Thus, powerful existences would have an advantage over stage 4 world deities in the same absolute art. You can't block them. Your clan, your children, they will all be exterminated. The golden-robed golden-haired male looked below. Dongbo Shuang looked at the 4 blood-robed law enforcers charging down from the sky. Their bodies were surrounded by thunderfire, and it was a one-sided massacre. One of the law enforcers had even rushed over. The 7th son of Chongshi forefather, Chong Yan. The blood-robed law enforcer's cold voice resounded, "Little brat, if you want to blame someone, blame your father. Let your entire clan be exterminated." The white-robed Chong Yen clenched his fists tightly. He was furious and anxious. He was no longer the 8-year-old child of the past. He knew that the teacher he respected was only a stage 4 world deity. Facing such a desperate situation, even his teacher would not have a solution. Isn't it too much for a powerful existence to deal with a little brat? Dongbua Shuang took a step, standing in front of his disciple Chong Yen. "Oh?" The blood-robed law enforcer looked at Dongbua Shuang. "It's too much. Today, we are going to exterminate the entire Chung family, including this little brat. You are the guest elder of the Chung family, world deity Feishue, right? According to the information, you are also the teacher of this Chong Yen?" Humph, why? Are you trying to show some backbone in front of your disciple?" This law enforcer did not care about his opponent at all. Furthermore, the current battlefield was completely one-sided. World deity Feishue, stage 4 world deity, no famous battle achievements. The blood-robed law enforcer sneered as he read out the information. "Teacher." Chong Yen was extremely nervous. "Little 7, watch from the side." Dongbua Shuang coldly pulled out the divine sword on his back. Clang! The divine sword was unsheathed. Wielding a sword, Dongbua Shuang looked at the blood-robed law enforcer and said coldly, "I might not have any famous battle achievements, but from today onwards, I will." Chapter 697. Chong Yen stood nervously behind Dongbua Shuang. After all, he had been a disciple of Dongbua Shuang since young. Naturally, they had developed deep feelings for each other over the years. He was worried and uneasy. He transmitted over, "Teacher, my Chung family can't hold on any longer. If teacher is too deeply involved with our family, you might incur the wrath of the Sky Fire Palace. I'm afraid they might take it out on you." He was just a stage 4 world deity. If the Sky Fire Palace were to take it out on him, they could easily kill him by tracing the karma. "Teacher, don't care about me. Even if I am killed, Father can revive me from the river of time." Chong Yen was worried about his teacher. After all, he had treated Dongbua Shuang as his kin. Dongbua Shuang turned to look at his disciple. He felt warmth in his heart. He chuckled, "Rest assured. Watch how your teacher uses the sword. It has been so many years, and I haven't had the chance to display it properly. You haven't fought with a law enforcer from the Sky Fire Palace before, right?" The blood-robed law enforcer sneered, "In a while, your disciple will see how you die. Are you ready?" Dongbua Shuang asked, "I'm ready. I'm going to use my sword." Arrogant. The blood-robed law enforcer became furious. "Die." Hong. He held a black sledgehammer in his hand. When he swung it, there would be an unseen airflow revolving around it. Furthermore, due to the extreme speed of the sledgehammer, thunderfire appeared under the suppression of the laws of this world. Dongbua Shuang also moved. A flaming sword light brushed past that black sledgehammer and arced across the body of the blood-robed law enforcer. The eyes of the blood-robed law enforcer were filled with shock and disbelief. How can this be? How can you be so fast that I can't even touch it? The terrifying power contained within the sword caused the body of the blood-robed law enforcer to explode. As for Dongbua Shuang, he kept his sword and remained standing at his original position. The other party's body was being intertwined by the countless sword light threads before disintegrating. The blood-robed law enforcer, dead. Dongbua Shuang remained calm. He cultivated the myriad devil true body. Even amongst the paragons in the deity world and abyss, his physique had an incomparably huge advantage. Only the apex protectors from the ancestor mother religion that came from another cosmos could surpass him in strength. However, Dongbua Shuang still had a huge advantage in terms of cultivation level. A casual strike of his sword easily surpassed his opponent in terms of speed and killed him. What? In the sky, the golden-robed judge's expression changed, and he looked down at a corner of the Chung family's building complex. There, a black-robed young man stood in front of 7th Prince Chong Yen with a sword in his hand. It was this black-robed young man who had killed the law enforcer with a single strike. Where did this expert come from? Isn't foreign dignitary Fei Xue a universe god in the fourth heaven? How could he kill a law enforcer? The golden-robed enforcer knew that the situation was not good. He had to get rid of this foreign chamberlain of Fei Xue. Otherwise, the situation would quickly change. He immediately ordered, "The 5 of you, work together and kill him." Yes. Now that the second elder of the Chung family had perished, only Chongsher forefather and grand elder were still holding on. So. The 5 law enforcers charged down at the same time. The golden-robed judge relied on the golden termination fire cloud ship to suppress Chongsher forefather. For a moment, the grand elder did not have anyone to deal with him. He looked around him in a daze. "Grand elder, hurry and save our clansmen." Chongsher forefather transmitted the order. At the same time, he noticed Dongbo Shuang, and a strand of hope rose in his eyes. Kill! Who would have thought that this foreign dignitary Fei Xue was still hiding such power? Let's work together and kill him. The 5 blood-robed law enforcers turned into 5 streams of light. Each of them was covered in thunderfire, and their eyes were filled with killing intent. They flew towards Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang stood there. Behind him, 7th Prince Chong Yen was still in a daze. Just now, his teacher had dealt with the enemy with a single sword. He still did not dare to believe it. "Did you see it clearly?" Dongbo Ying's voice resounded. "I didn't see it clearly." "Let's see how your teacher uses the sword." If it was in the deity world and abyss, deities would not be able to see the battle between powerful existences. But in this world, under the suppression of the laws, the speed of powerful existences was suppressed in all aspects. Yet, they could still see it clearly. His voice was still resounding. Dongbo Shuang had already turned into a stream of light and took the initiative to welcome the attack. Hong! In midair, a thunderfire stream of light clashed with the other 5. Die! Fighting against my Skyfire Palace? Where did this brat come from? The 5 law enforcers' killing intent soared to the sky. They did not believe that they would lose even if they worked together. Suddenly, Dongbo Ying's figure flashed, brushing past a curved blade. At the same time, the divine sword in his hand slashed towards one of the taller law enforcers. The taller law enforcer was still furiously waving his axe. However, the divine sword was unpredictable and fast. Under the entanglement of the thunderfire, it narrowly brushed past the axe, causing the axe to be unable to block it. With a single slash, the sword slashed through the opponent's neck, causing his head to be sent flying. Following which, the power contained within the divine sword charged into the opponent's body, causing his body to start disintegrating. Countless sword-light threads were continuously entangling the opponent's disintegrating body, rapidly destroying everything. What? The 4 law enforcers, who were initially filled with confidence, felt a chill in their hearts. In just a single exchange, one of them had died. Furthermore, the other 4's weapons were not even able to touch Dongbo Ying's body. So fast. His movement technique is so fast. His sword technique is also so fast. They did not dare to believe it. Under the suppression of the laws of this world, the opponent actually maintained such a huge advantage in terms of speed. Whoosh, whoosh. After killing one of the law enforcers, Dongbo Ying did not stop. Instead, he launched another counterattack. His sword light was like a ray of sunlight, fast and magical. Boom! In just a single exchange, the body of the law enforcer wielding the saber was destroyed. Another law enforcer had died. Ordinary law enforcers, in front of this guest retainer Fei Xue, could be easily killed. Flee! Quick, flee! Flee! The remaining 3 law enforcers no longer had the slightest bit of hope. They could sense the huge gap between them. Although they did not understand how this guest retainer Feishue had suddenly become such a terrifying existence, they knew that they could not afford to offend him. Thus, they had to flee. After all, although it was only a clone that died, the treasures on it would be gone. Swish, swish, swish. The three law enforcers split up, transforming into three streams of light as they fled. They were very clear that if they fled together, they would most likely be killed one after another. After all, this guest retainer Feishue was simply too fast. Who? Just as two of the law enforcers flew close to the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship, another law enforcer was similarly annihilated. Dongbua Shuang stood in mid-air with a sword in his hand, watching everything coldly. He knew that he could no longer catch up to the enemy, unless he revealed some of his trump cards. But since he wanted to uncover the secrets of this world, he naturally did not want to reveal them so early. Judge Emissary Sheng, that guest retainer Feishue is too powerful. We can't defeat him. Let's hurry and leave. These two law enforcers instantly hid within the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship. The golden-robed Judge Emissary was suppressing Chongsher Forefather, but he was looking at the distant Dongbua Shuang with shock and anger. He had seen the battle earlier clearly, and he was clear that if it was a one-on-one battle, he would only be slightly stronger than the law enforcers. It would be extremely strenuous for him to kill a law enforcer. Even with the help of the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship, he would still need to spend some effort to kill a law enforcer. But this guest retainer Feishue was simply too savage. Judge Emissary. Standing in mid-air, Dongbua Ying's gaze landed on the golden-robed Judge Emissary. If you don't wish to leave, then you can stay here. The moment he finished speaking, south, the golden-robed Judge Emissary instantly retreated, entering the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship. Clearly, he did not wish to fight with this terrifying existence. Chapter 698. Hiding within the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship, the golden-robed Judge Emissary and the other two law enforcers heaved a sigh of relief. This mysterious honored guest Feishue had given them too much pressure. What is the background of this honored guest Feishue? The golden-robed Judge Emissary frowned. He is actually so strong. That's right. Out of our 6 law enforcers, 4 have fallen in his hands. The other 2 blood-robed law enforcers were in disbelief. Everything they had experienced was like a nightmare. According to the intelligence, he is a low-profile stage 4 world deity. From what I see, he should be an old monster cultivating in seclusion within the Chung family. His strength is so strong that only the 2 palace lords of our Skyfire Palace have the confidence to kill him. The 3 of them looked down through the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship, feeling that their defeat this time was too unjust. With sufficient preparation, the Chung family would not be able to stop them. But this honored guest Feishue suddenly appeared. In mid-air, Dongbua Shuang sheathed the sword on his back. The Grand Elder and Chongsher Forefather were rapidly flying over. The 2 of them were extremely passionate. They were not fools. At this moment, they understood that this honored guest Feishue, who came to the Chung family as an honored guest, was a terrifying existence. He was an existence that they could not deal with even with their entire clan's strength. In the entire world, only the 3 holy grounds could deal with this old monster. Feishue. Chongsher Forefather flew over. He was hesitant to address him. Just call him honored guest Feishue. Dongbua Shuang said. Honored guest Feishue. The smile on Chongsher Forefather's face became even more radiant. The Grand Elder beside him was also laughing. Although their losses this time were not small, the second elder and third elder who died in battle were merely avatars that could be cultivated back quickly. The foundation of the clan had not been destroyed, so their losses this time were much better than what they had expected. This time, it's all thanks to retainer Feishue. Otherwise, my Chung family would be in deep trouble. I'm afraid there would be countless casualties. Who would have thought that the Skyfire Palace would be so ruthless? It would have been fine if they did not make a move, but the moment they did, they even sent out their palace protection treasure, the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship. Chongsher Forefather was also slightly frustrated. Right, if guest elder Fei Xue didn't take action, we would have been finished this time. Great elder began to flatter him. In the past, his attitude was still quite high and mighty, but now, he was extremely respectful. This was the world of cultivators. The strong reigned supreme. After all, with Dongbu Shuiying's strength, he could easily destroy the Cheng family. I am Little Seven's master. Naturally, I have to stand out. Dongbu Shuiying smiled. Right. Chongshi forefather nodded, Yenner's teacher. How fortunate. Fortunate that his son could become the disciple of such a powerful existence, allowing the Cheng family to have a huge support. At this moment, a voice came from the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship. Old Chong, don't think that you can ignore my Sky Fire Palace just by relying on that guest elder Fei Xue. I advise you to obediently hand over the treasure, otherwise, even if guest elder Fei Xue could protect you this time, he wouldn't be able to protect you a second time. This world is ultimately the world of the three holy grounds. A single guest elder Fei Xue wouldn't be able to overturn the heavens. Dongbu Shuiying raised his head and looked at the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship in the sky. Guest elder Fei Xue. That cold voice continued, after killing an enforcer of my Sky Fire Palace, you better obediently go to the Sky Fire Palace and beg for forgiveness. Otherwise, no matter how powerful you are, you will ultimately die. You sure have a big tone. What a pity that you are too timid. You have always been hiding in this battleship, not daring to come out. Dongbu Shuiying chuckled. Even though the defenses of this battleship were strong and one couldn't enter under normal circumstances. By relying on the mirage world, he grasped, he could easily enter the interior of the battleship and destroy them. It was just that it wasn't worth it to expose his ultimate move for these few brats. Then you just have to wait. Following that cold laughter, that Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship instantly turned into a stream of light and flew towards the distance. Chongshi forefather and Grand Elder felt slightly anxious when they saw this. They understood that the Sky Fire Palace would not let this matter rest so easily. Patriarch, what should we do? Grand Elder transmitted, do we hand over the True God weapon? The True God weapon is our hope in opening our Tao. Naturally, we can't hand it over. The Cheng family is also created by us. As long as we are alive, we can always rebuild it. We have to keep the True God weapon. Chongshi forefather remained unwavering. He transmitted, fortunately, we have honored guest Fei Xue. Furthermore, the left palace head of the Sky Fire Palace has a good relationship with us. This time, only the right palace head was sent. The Sky Fire Palace will not use their full strength to deal with us. We can still hold on. If we really can't, we can just give up on this place. And then, Grand Elder agreed. The two of them communicated their thoughts. At the same time, they were incomparably grateful to Dongbu Shuiying. Honored guest Fei Xue, let us go down first. Chongshi forefather said. Let's go. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. Below, many members of the Cheng family were raising their heads to watch. There were also a large number of guards and maids. Especially 7th Highness Chong Yan, who was staring dumbfoundedly. He could not help but rub his eyes. When he raised his head again, he saw his father and Grand Elder, who had the highest status in the clan, standing passionately by his teacher's side. Teacher is actually so powerful. My teacher is simply too powerful. Chong Yan did not dare to believe it. 7th Highness. A figure appeared beside him. He was the housekeeper of the Cheng family. The housekeeper looked on ruefully and transmitted, Your Highness, back then when you insisted on taking honored guest Fei Xue as your teacher, I still felt that Your Highness was just messing around. But from the looks of it now, Your Highness's choice back then was the smartest. I have indeed misjudged you. Honored guest Fei Xue's strength is truly unfathomable. Truly unfathomable. The Cheng family was bustling with activity. Many of the guards, maids, and clansmen were discussing this honored guest Fei Xue secretly. They did not dare to say it out loud and only transmitted their voices, afraid of offending this honored guest Fei Xue. And within the guest hall, Chongshi forefather even took the initiative to organize a banquet to thank honored guest Fei Xue. It was rare for 7th Highness Chong Yen to be able to attend. Even the second and third elder who were billions of miles away had borrowed karma to manifest their incarnations here. A wave of compliments. The center of the entire banquet was vaguely Dongbu Shuang. Even Chongshi forefather had to lower his stance. When the banquet ended, one by one, they left, leaving behind Chongshi forefather and the 3 elders to accompany Dongbu Shuang. Honored guest Fei Xue, this is such a huge matter. I'm afraid the Sky Fire Palace will not let this matter rest. Chongshi forefather then spoke. He sighed, we are also feeling vexed. The Sky Fire Palace is indeed hard to deal with. Dongbu Shuang sighed, the 3 holy grounds are all unfathomable. And then, Chongshi forefather and the 3 elders could feel an unseen pressure. The rule of the 3 holy grounds was deeply rooted. Could they really protect that true God weapon? But they had cultivated for countless years, and this true God weapon was their hope of opening their Tao. How could they be willing to give it up? This honored guest Fei Xue did not say if he would help us resist against the Sky Fire Palace. Chongshi forefather thought, I wonder if the 6 sever sword styles can satisfy him? Chongshi forefather and the 3 elders exchanged glances. Following which, Chongshi forefather personally said, honored guest Fei Xue has saved my Chung family this time. This grace is something my Chung family will not be able to repay. I heard that honored guest Fei Xue needs the 6 sever sword styles. Yes, I like to study sword techniques. Dongbu Shuang said. These words were very fake. He wanted to learn the usage of the highest level of Tao, in this Tao of slaughter absolute art. After all, sword techniques, spear techniques, blade techniques and others were just external manifestations. Honored guest Fei Xue, please follow me. Chongshi forefather chuckled. Dongbu Shuang smiled and followed Chongshi forefather into the forbidden ground of the clan. Layers of arrays protected them. In the depths of the forbidden ground, on a bookshelf in a meditation room, Chongshi forefather took out a cloth and passed it to Dongbu Shuang. This is the original copy of the 6 sever sword styles. Honored guest Fei Xue, please take a look. Dongbu Shuang received the gray cloth. With a glance, he could see the 6 great sword moves drawn on the cloth. With a slight sense. As he sensed, the 6 great sword moves on the cloth shone with a golden halo. At the same time, a large amount of information surged into Dongbu Shuaying's mind. Chapter 699. Dongbu Shuaying's soul was much stronger than before, and learning a complete absolute art was much easier for him. His thinking speed was also not affected much. Just as I expected. Dongbu Shuang was suppressing his joy. This is indeed an absolute art of the Tao of slaughter. Previously, he had merely made his judgment based on the rumors of the outside world. Even though he was 70 to 80% confident, he was still worried that his judgment would be wrong. 6 sever sword styles, both of Dongbu Shuaying's eyes were flickering with countless sword lights. The first sword style of the Tao of slaughter, the second sword style of the Tao of slaughter, he rapidly began to comprehend and learn them. He was someone who created the Tao of slaughter, and could comprehend the first 5 styles of this absolute art with a single glance. What a good Tao of slaughter! Shuang praised in his heart, his killing intent is hidden deeply and hibernating. He isn't in a rush during battle, and at the most crucial moment, he can display his killing move without any warning, catching the enemy by surprise and killing them in an instant. The creator of the 6 sever sword styles, Dongbu Shuang could not help but admire him. The Tao of slaughter he comprehended was to condense his power in an instant before unleashing it. As for the core concept of the 6 sword sever styles, it was not to kill the enemy, but to lay low and hide one's killing intent. Even the power of the sword moves was quietly accumulating power. At a certain moment, it would suddenly reveal its terrifying fangs and kill with one strike. Chongshi forefather looked at Dongbu Shuang with astonishment. Currently, Dongbush Shuang was holding onto the gray cloth, and his eyes were flickering with sword lights. His terrifying killing intent would occasionally be concealed, and occasionally burst out. When it was concealed, Chongsher Forefather could not sense any killing intent, but when it burst out, he could not help but feel fear and tremble in his heart. What a terrifying killing intent! Chongsher Forefather could not help but feel fear growing in his heart. This honored guest Feishue probably did not use his full strength when fighting against Judge Emissary Sheng and the others. That's good too. The stronger he is, the more help he would be to my Chung family. Chongsher Forefather calmed his heart. If he wanted to deal against my Chung family, he would have done so a long time ago. He hasn't done anything for such a long time, and has even taught Yenner for such a long time. He should have some feelings for Yenner. Towards this mysterious and terrifying honored guest of Feishue, Chongsher Forefather could only place his hopes on the other party. What an impressive 6 sword styles of sever. The sword light in Dongbush Shui Ying's eyes dissipated, and he regained his gentleness. He casually passed the cloth in his hand to Chongsher Forefather. Chongsher Patriarch, the Skyfire Palace would most likely not let this matter rest. Furthermore, the other 2 holy grounds would also pay attention to this place. If the treasures you obtained can arouse the greed of the Skyfire Palace, I'm afraid it can also arouse the greed of the other 2 holy lands. Yes. Chongsher Forefather nodded. What kind of treasure is it? Dongbush Shuang asked. A true god weapon. Chongsher Forefather did not hide it either. After all, the Skyfire Palace already knew about it, and it was no longer a secret. There was no need to hide it from honored guest Feishue and make Feishue unhappy. Oh. Dongbush Shuang nodded. Chongsher Forefather was slightly nervous when he saw that. He was afraid that honored guest Feishue would have greedy thoughts because of this. He hurriedly said, if honored guest Feishue wishes to inspect the true god weapon, I can send my honored guest incarnation to inspect it. No need. Dongbush Shuang said indifferently. Dongbush Shuang indeed did not care about the true god weapon that was highly valued in this world. In the deity world and abyss, even though true god weapons were precious, with his level, he could still come into contact with some of them. Just him alone had 3, and 2 of them contained the Tao of Eternity. His wife Jing Qiu also had one. And after obtaining the true god weapon, he understood one thing: true god weapons were indeed helpful in opening a Tao, but the help was limited. If one could easily open a Tao, then Bloodblade and Monarch Green would not have only grasped 3 Taos. Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head would also not have grasped a single Tao. The Taos comprehended would usually be extremely compatible with one's body. Dongbush Shuang had comprehended the true meaning of the world when he was a transcendent. Furthermore, he was the first to grasp the true meaning of mirage within the true meaning of the world. He was naturally talented in this aspect, and with the help of many opportunities, he finally opened the Tao of mirage. For instance, among the grade 2 true meanings he comprehended when he was a transcendent, the earliest was the embryonic form of the true meaning of extreme piercing. The Tao of slaughter he comprehended was also a Tao that gathered energy at a single point. One's understanding of the world, emotions, the myriad existences, and the realm of one's cultivation heart would all affect the direction of cultivation. External opportunities would only push one forward. Thus, if he could obtain a suitable true god weapon, it might be of help. But if it was not suitable for him, like the temporal temple, even if it was placed in front of Dongbush Shuang, he might not be able to open the Tao of time and space. You really don't need it? Chongsher Forefather could not help but ask, honored guest has done a great favor for my Chung family. Inspecting the true god weapon is a small matter. No need. Dongbush Shuang said. He felt that the Tao of mirage and Tao of slaughter were sufficient for him to research. For the time being, he did not have any desire for other Taos. I've already said that the Skyfire Palace and the other 2 holy grounds will probably be paying attention to this place. If I help your Chung family, I will definitely clash with them. Thus, I hope to understand more about them. Dongbush Shuang said. That is natural. Chongsher forefather nodded. He then took the initiative to explain, let me first talk about the three holy grounds, the Sky Fire Palace. With Chongsher forefather taking the initiative to explain, Dongbo Shuang soon understood the power structure of this world. The three holy grounds all had paragons. The Sky Fire Palace and the Su Empire each had 2 paragons, while the Spectre Prefecture of the three holy grounds only had 1. In this world, there were a total of 5 paragons. They occupied the highest echelon, and had also plundered many treasures and absolute arts, stabilizing their position. There were many absolute arts in this world. They were all passed down from the previous epochs. Furthermore, these absolute arts did not have any restrictions. As long as one comprehended them, they could be imparted. They would create a new original copy and impart it. Thus, there were many absolute arts that had been passed down from epochs to epoch. Why did Ancestor Devil's ancient star map lead me here? Dongbo Shuang was puzzled. The more he understood, the more puzzled he became. In this world, because of the suppression of the laws, ordinary people would not be able to teleport or travel through space. Unless they opened their own Tao, surpassing the normal laws of the heaven and earth. Only Dongbo Shuiying's mirage world could teleport. Thus, their journey was very slow. From the Chung family to the Sky Fire Palace, even if they rode on the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship at full speed, they would still need more than 5 years to arrive. Of course, while they were rushing, their incarnations had already reported everything. Honored guest Fei Xue. Within the Sky Fire Palace, a red-haired man whose entire body was covered in flames frowned. Judge Sheng and the 6 law enforcers all appeared with their incarnations. They were incomparably respectful. Palace Master, that honored guest Fei Xue's strength is unfathomable. He was able to kill the law enforcers with one move. 5 law enforcers joined hands to attack him, but 3 of them were killed in an extremely short period of time. The remaining 2 ran quickly and hid in the Golden Termination Fire Cloud ship. If we had run any slower, we would have all been killed, the golden-haired judge reported respectfully. Too powerful. His strength far surpasses us. The law enforcers also said. The red-haired man covered in flames frowned and nodded. He waved his hand and said, all of you can leave. Yes. The incarnations immediately dissipated. At this moment, another figure walked over. It was a black-haired golden-robed man. His eyes were faintly covered in golden flames. He smiled and said, why? Did you fail? I said it was just a true god weapon. Why did you have to forcefully snatch it? Brother. The red-haired man frowned, true god weapons are extremely rare. We have all opened up our Tao. That true god weapon is of limited help to us. However, our Sky Fire Palace has many almighties. How could the Chung family possess such a treasure like a true god weapon? The black-haired golden-robed man shook his head and smiled. Although the Sky Fire Palace was divided into factions, the relationship between the 2 of them was extremely good. Because they were the only 2 existences in this world who had opened up the Tao of Fire. Naturally, they discussed the Tao and helped each other. That honored guest Fei Xue is so strong. He doesn't seem like a stage 4 world deity. The black-haired golden-robed man said. I don't think so either. It could be a newly emerged venerable who purposely disguised himself. The red-haired man was slightly worried, brother, if a newly emerged venerable appeared, the impact would be huge. Let's go take a look at the River of Time. If he is a venerable and has already transcended, he wouldn't be in the River of Time. The black-haired golden-robed man said. Yes. The red-haired man nodded. Who? The 2 of them looked towards the distant sky. This layer of space started to become blurry, and an even deeper layer of space appeared. On that layer, there was a majestic and surging river. The 2 palace masters of the Sky Fire Palace looked at the River of Time. Within the River of Time, there were countless life forms. They could follow their karma to find these countless life forms. Honored guest Fei Xue. The two of them followed their karma with honored guest Fei Xue to search. Very soon. Because Dongbu Shuang had come to this world, they would be able to find Dongbu Shuang in the corresponding section of the River of Time in this world. Amen. The two palace masters of the Sky Fire Palace looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment. Within this River of Time, there was an incomparably huge and lofty figure in the river. He was too huge. The thickness of his waist seemed to occupy a tenth of the width of the River of Time. When he stretched out both of his hands, he could probably envelop half of the River of Time. Even an ordinary stage 4 world deity would be as small as an ant in front of such a towering giant. How can he be so huge? The two palace masters of the Sky Fire Palace were dumbfounded. He indeed did not transcend, but how could he, seeing such a huge and lofty figure within the River of Time? The two palace masters of the Sky Fire Palace could faintly feel threatened. Let alone the two palace masters of the Sky Fire Palace, even the Su Empire and Spectre Prefecture of the Three Holy Lands were looking through the River of Time. They wanted to see if honored guest Fei Xue was really a stage 4 world deity. The moment they saw him, they were also stunned. This figure. In front of him, the River of Time is just a small stream. The two emperors of the Su Empire and the Spectre Prefecture Master were both stunned. They had never seen or heard of such a figure before. It was not even recorded in history. In their world, there had never been a stage 4 world deity who had opened his Tao. Hence, they were somewhat dumbfounded. Chapter 700. The 5 paragons from the 3 holy grounds of this world, the Sky Fire Palace, Su Empire, and Spectre Prefecture, could vaguely understand that this guest elder flying snow was definitely extraordinary from that towering figure that was much larger than ordinary stage 4 world deities in the River of Time. After all, the scene within the River of Time could not be faked. Everything was a natural manifestation of the laws of the universe. They knew that this guest Fei Xue was not ordinary. But what was so special about him? What was so special about him? Why was he so special? These were all unknown. The past did not record it, but the present did. Guest Elder Flying Snow was the only stage 4 world deity across the many epochs of this world who could have such a huge body in the River of Time. His waist was just 1/10 the width of the River of Time. Such a body was simply unfathomable. Paragon Emperor Su, you are the most knowledgeable. Do you know why this guest Fei Xue is so special? I don't know, I've never heard of it. Brother Golden Flame, do you know? I'm also thinking hard, but I can't understand. However, the laws of the universe are not fake. Among the 5 supremacies, the strongest were Supremacy Emperor Su and the Golden Fire Palace Lord. The other 3 were slightly weaker. Although the Spectre Prefecture Lord had established a sacred land, it was because the Tao he established was rather strange and unique. Everyone, such an unfathomable stage 4 world deity has never appeared in the previous epochs. Could it be related to the legendary ancient shrine? Ancient shrine? Right, I'm afraid only the ancient shrine would have such an unfathomable matter. But the ancient shrine is in my Su Empire. I dare say that this guest Fei Xue has never entered it before. Paragon Emperor Su said directly. He was the oldest paragon in this world, and he was also very strong. He had long occupied the mysterious ancient shrine and built the Su Empire around it. Everyone has been to the ancient shrine before. If guest Fei Xue was an ordinary stage 4 world deity before entering, he definitely wouldn't have gained anything. Everyone knows how terrifying the ancient shrine is. But other than the ancient shrine, I can't think of any other reason. The 5 venerable ones discussed among themselves, their hearts full of doubts. This matter was caused by my Sky Fire Palace. Fei Hua and I are responsible for investigating the background of this guest elder Fei Xue, Venerable Golden Flame said. Chung family. Currently, within the Chung family, the family's disciples, guards, maids, guest chamberlains, and elders were looking at Dongbu Shuang in a completely different light, and their attitudes were much more respectful. They all knew very well that this was an existence that could kill almighties as easily as killing chickens. On the other hand, the Seventh Highness, Chong Yen, was rather proud of himself. He would often ask his master, Dongbu Shuang, for advice on sword arts. Instead, it was Chongshi forefather, Grand Elder and a few others who had extremely high statuses. They knew that the Skyfire Palace would definitely not let this matter rest. Years passed by. Traveling from the Heaven Fire Palace to the Chung family, under the suppression of the rules, one's maximum speed was only several tens of thousands of miles per second. With the vastness of this world, it would take several years to travel continuously. Within the courtyard, Dongbu Shuang sat cross-legged on the grass with a sword placed on his knees. His eyes were closed as he meditated. Occasionally, he would pick up the divine sword on his knees and display 2 or 3 sword moves. Not far away, the white-robed young man, Chong Yen, was staring at his master with his eyes wide open, formidable, too formidable. At first glance, it might seem ordinary, but the more I experience it, the more unfathomable it becomes. Chong Yen exclaimed in his heart. How could he know that the sword techniques that Dongbu Shuang was casually displaying were the final 6th sword style of the 6 sword sever styles? As an existence who opened the Tao of Slaughter, he only took 3 days to completely master the first 5 sword styles of the 6 sword sever styles. However, he spent much more time on the 6th style, spending over 200 years to grasp it. Because his main body was in the distant Crimson Rock Mountain in the material world, only 2 years had passed in the outside world. After mastering it, Dongbu Shuang began to carefully study how the 6th sword style of the 6 sword sever styles was created and how the Tao of Slaughter's profundities were combined. One had to know that the Heavenly Emperor of Great Destruction, who was very close to Monarch Green in strength, had comprehended the second half of the Blood Demon scripture and created his own absolute art. Learning an absolute art that was suitable for one's Tao was one aspect. More importantly, one could use it to spy on how the Creator created the absolute art. Creating an absolute art that was most suitable for oneself would have the greatest power. After all, even the same Tao of Slaughter had its differences. As for sword moves, external appearances were the most superficial. Using swords, sabers, spears were the most superficial. The core was the laws and profundities within. Learning an absolute art of the Tao of Slaughter has increased the power of my Tao of Slaughter's attacks by several times. Dongbu Shuang was filled with joy, but this isn't enough. If I were to create my own absolute art in the future, it might not be impossible for me to fight against rulers. Heavenly Emperor of Great Destruction was an existence who created his own absolute art and could fight against rulers. There were many in the deity world and abyss who wanted to learn from Heavenly Emperor of Great Destruction. Dongbu Shuang did not think that he could do it, but he had his own advantages. His Tao of Mirage and Tao of Slaughter was a combination that even Heavenly Emperor of Great Destruction would be envious of. Hong! Suddenly, a terrifying aura rushed over from afar. Dongbu Shuang, who was seated cross-legged in the courtyard, looked up. With a wave of his right hand, 7th Highness Chong Yen, who was training in the distance, was controlled to fly behind Dongbu Shuang. Chong Yen was puzzled. Teacher, what's going on? Watch by the side obediently. Dongbu Shuang stood up and ordered. Who? Within the Chung family, Chongshi forefather let out an angry roar. The clan's array was also activated. From afar, a dazzling stream of flames brought with it a terrifying aura as it descended towards the Chung family. This aura caused Dongbu Shuang to frown. Paragon? That flame was not just the lightning fire formed by the laws of this world. It was a terrifying flame condensed after opening a Tao. Although it was not comparable to Paragon Huacheng, it was enough to make Dongbu Shuang feel threatened. From the looks of it, he should have learned some absolute art related to the Tao of Fire. The paragons of this world cannot be underestimated. After all, most of them would be able to find an absolute art that suits them. Hong! This stream of flames smashed into the courtyard. It was incomparably tyrannical, and an unseen might surged out from all directions. The entire Chung family's array was also revolving. The black waves were trying their best to suppress it. After all, this was just a remnant wave emitted by a paragon. The array of the Chung family was still able to hold on. However, half of the courtyard was destroyed. Behind Dongbush Shuang, the grass was still green, and was not affected at all. So. 4 figures came over. They were none other than Chongshi forefather and the other 3 powerful existences elders. They saw that the one descending along with the stream of flames was a red-haired male bathed in flames. He stood there with his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with boundless might, and the red flames on the surface of his body surged. This caused Chongshi forefather and the rest to feel the threat of death. Right palace head. The hearts of Chongshi forefather and the rest tightened. Although they were prepared, when they saw one of the 2 palace heads of the Sky Fire Palace, the right palace head, Feihua Palace head, they still felt their hearts trembling. Right palace head of the Sky Fire Palace. Chong Yen, who was standing behind Dongbush Shuang, was also nervous. He could not help but take a step closer to Dongbush Shuang. Dongbush Shuang stood there with a sword on his back. Looking at the red-haired male who was emitting a pressure, he smiled. Feihua Palace head. Chongshi forefather and the other 3, as well as 7th Highness Chong Yen, could not help but feel admiration. Facing Feihua Palace head, they were all flustered. However, honored guest Feishue was still as calm as ever, as though he was facing an ordinary enemy. Interesting. Feihua Palace head looked at the black-robed young man with a divine sword on his back. He looked like an ordinary stage 4 world deity, but he had seen the River of Time and knew that this honored guest Feishue wasn't ordinary. You want to help the Chung family? Feihua Palace head asked casually. Yes. Dongbush Shuang nodded. His reply was also very casual. Then wouldn't you be making an enemy of my Sky Fire Palace? Feihua Palace head asked again. The hearts of Chongshi forefather and the other 4 started beating faster. They were extremely nervous. I have no intention of making an enemy of the Sky Fire Palace. But if the Sky Fire Palace doesn't want to let this matter rest, then so be it. Dongbush Shuang said. Oh? Feihua Palace head frowned slightly. Too calm. Too indifferent. There weren't many who dared to say making an enemy of the Sky Fire Palace in such a calm manner. For a world deity like you to have such strength, you must have had some special encounters, right? Feihua Palace head asked. Some encounters. Dongbush Shuang didn't say anything after finishing his sentence. Even if you don't say, I know that you have been to the ancient shrine. Feihua Palace head said. At the same time, he was observing Dongbush Shuaying's expression, trying to determine his own guess. Dongbush Shuaying's heart moved when he heard that. Ancient shrine. A stage 4 world deity like him had displayed such heaven-defying combat power. From the information obtained by the Chung family, it should have never happened before. However, the other party thought that he had been to the ancient shrine. Ancient shrine? Shuang had a vague feeling that this ancient shrine was definitely an extraordinary place. It could even be related to the reason why the ancestor devil had led him here with that star atlas. Chapter 701. What kind of place is the ancient shrine? Dongbush Shuang asked. You don't know? Feihua Palace Master sneered. I don't know. Dongbush Shuang nodded. Feihua Palace Master frowned. Such a powerful stage 4 world deity had never appeared before in history. That was why they guessed that it might be related to the mysterious ancient shrine. Then why are you so much stronger than powerful existences? Feihua Palace Master frowned and shouted. It's just a normal cultivation. Dongbush Shuang casually replied. Feihua Palace Master's lips curled into a cold intent. Honored guest Feishue, you should know that other than the other 4 paragons, it has been a very long time since anyone dared to be so insolent in front of me. Insolent? Is that so? Dongbush Shuang asked. Being disrespectful means being insolent. Fei Hua Palace Master sneered. By the side, Chongshi Forefather, the three powerful existences elders, and Seventh Highness Chong Yen were all extremely nervous. If it was them, they would not be able to speak so calmly and casually with Fei Hua Palace Master. After all, this was Fei Hua Palace Master. He was one of the five existences that stood at the peak of this world, looking down on the countless lives. Usually, when other powerful existences face these five existences, they would not dare to be disrespectful. Being disrespectful means being insolent? Dongbua Shuang chuckled, interesting. In that case, respected Fei Hua Palace Master, if there's nothing else, please leave. I still have to guide my disciple in his cultivation and will not accompany you any further. Guide your disciple in his cultivation? You better survive from my hands first. Fei Hua Palace Master suddenly roared. Since he could not get anything out of him, then he would fight. From the battle, he would be able to understand the other party's foundation. Hong! Fei Hua Palace Master abruptly punched over. Hong! A terrifying stream of fire shot over. Everywhere it passed, everything would be destroyed. Countless black cracks appeared in the surrounding space. This was a flame controlled by someone who had already opened his Tao. It was abnormally tyrannical. This scene caused Chongshi Forefather, Chong Yen and the others to feel a chill in their hearts. Humph! Dongbua Shuang also punched out. The surface of his fist was covered with a layer of black armor. His fist blasted out, causing the space to distort and tear. His speed was even above Fei Hua Palace Lord's, forcefully smashing onto Fei Hua Palace Lord's fist. Fist against fist. Bam! Fei Hua Empyrean instantly transformed into a stream of light and was sent flying. His face was still filled with astonishment as he coughed out fresh blood. Dongbua Shuang snorted coldly, stay within the clan's formation, don't go out. Swoosh! Dongbua Shuang also soared into the sky and chased after Fei Hua Empyrean. This. Chongshi Forefather was stunned. The three powerful existences elders were also stunned. Seventh Highness Chong Yen was even more stunned. Fei Hua Empyrean, who stood at the peak of this world, was actually sent flying with a single punch. Fei Hua Palace Master's status in this world was equivalent to the sovereign status in the deity world and dark abyss. If an ordinary major existence were to appear out of nowhere and send the sovereign flying with a single punch, the cultivators of the deity world and dark abyss would all be dumbfounded. Fei Hua Empyrean could feel the terrifying energy engulfing his entire body. His fist was completely shattered, and the bones in his right arm were broken. His entire body trembled as he coughed out fresh blood and was sent flying tens of thousands of kilometers away. How could this be? Fei Hua Empyrean did not dare to believe it. I'm a paragon. I'm a paragon, and I've even cultivated an absolute art. How could I be sent flying by a stage 4 world deity with a single punch? South Dongbua Shuang appeared in midair opposite him. He shook his head inwardly. I've used too much strength, thinking that the paragons of this world have absolute arts and cannot be underestimated. I've used 50% of my strength. Clearly, it's still too much. Even though there are absolute arts in this world that can increase one's strength and speed, they are far from being comparable to the myriad devil true body. Forget about this world, even in the deity world and dark abyss, there was no absolute art that could be compared to the myriad devil true body. Just by relying on this absolute art, Ancestor Devil was able to prevent the Lake Heart Island Master from dealing with him. He even used it to create the ancient demon. Only by mastering all 6 great inheritances, such as the Blood Demon Scripture, would one of the foundations for mastering the myriad devil true body. Dongbua Shuang had suffered so much. Even when his cultivation heart reached the 2nd level, he was only able to master the beginner scroll. From this, one could see how terrifying this absolute art was. It was definitely the strongest absolute art in the history of the deity world and dark abyss in regards to the body. Even with just 50% of his strength, he was already able to completely suppress this Fei Hua Empyrean. Pure strength and speed are useless. realm is more important. Fei Hua Empyrean was infuriated. The injuries on his body instantly recovered. At the same time, he extended both his hands, causing countless red flames to form rapidly. They formed a huge array in midair and enveloped Dongbo Shuang. Humph! Dongbo Shuang drew his sword. This opponent in front of him wasn't worthy of him using his spear. A sword was enough. Hua! A blood-colored sword light that was like a thread instantly sliced through the countless red flames and slashed towards Fei Hua Empyrean. This sword was extremely fast. In fact, Fei Hua Empyrean had a strange feeling that he wouldn't be able to dodge it. What's going on? I'm a paragon. Why can't I dodge his sword art? Why can't I see through the profoundness of his sword art? Fei Hua Empyrean felt a little flustered in his heart. A black wooden staff appeared in his hand as he used it to block that sword light. Boom! Although he managed to block it, the Tao of Slaughter contained within the sword light still caused Fei Hua Empyrean to fly backwards as he coughed out another mouthful of blood. Severing sword. Dongbo Shuang smiled. He was very satisfied with the might of the severing sword. Fei Hua Empyrean stood in the air from afar. He felt some disbelief and was unable to accept this. My strength and speed are inferior to my opponent. Why is his sword art so profound that I can't break it? Hua! Dongbo Shuang didn't stop. Another sword descended from afar. It was very hard to find a paragon expert. It was very suitable for him to test his understanding of the 6 sword styles of severing sword. This time around, he intentionally lowered his strength to prevent his opponent from being sent flying. In midair, streams of sword light that resembled blood threads could be seen. These sword lights were unrestrained and extremely powerful. Fei Hua Empyrean was barely able to block 2 sword strikes. The third sword slashed through his opponent's body, splitting him into 2. Flee. The 2 halves of Fei Hua Empyrean rapidly reconnected. At the same time, he no longer had the will to fight. He understood that he wasn't a match for this guest elder Fei Shua. Flee. When Dongbo Shuang saw that his opponent wanted to flee, he couldn't be bothered to waste any more time. The power contained in his sword was suddenly raised to 50%. The speed and strength of his sword technique naturally rose explosively. In terms of flying speed, Dongbo Shuang was also above his opponent. Under the whistling of the sword light, the fleeing Fei Hua Empyrean's body was sliced apart like tofu. After that, he was forcefully annihilated by the might of his sword art. Fei Hua Empyrean had died in battle. One of the 5 paragons who stood at the peak of this world, Fei Hua Empyrean, was killed by guest elder Fei Shua. Of course, the one who died was merely an avatar. Dongbo Shuang waved his hand and kept all the treasures left behind by his opponent. Who? Dongbo Shuang turned into a stream of light and returned to the Chung family. Within that courtyard, Chongshi forefather and the other 4 were looking at Dongbo Shuang with gazes filled with disbelief and passion. For instance, 7th Highness Chong Yen was proud of his teacher. As for Chongshi forefather and the rest, they realized that the strength of this guest elder Fei Shua was so tyrannical that it was sufficient for him to establish a new holy ground. The world was about to change. Chapter 702. The consequences of killing the avatar of Fei Hua Palace Master was something that Dongbo Shuang could guess. However, he did not care about it. He was more concerned about the ancient shrine. Within the hall, Chongshi forefather dismissed his attendants and sat opposite to Dongbo Shuang. He personally poured fruit wine for Dongbo Shuang, honored guest Fei Shua. There is an ancient legend about the ancient shrine. Very few people know of this legend, and I only came to know of it by chance. Ancient legend? Dongbo Shuang looked at him, waiting for him to continue. The world has its birth and death, and each birth and death is an epic. Chongshi forefather said, according to the legend, a very very long time ago, at the beginning of the many epochs of this world, there were no living beings in this world. Suddenly, on a certain day, a group of humans descended into this world, and at the same time, an ancient shrine appeared as well. Dongbua Shuang was slightly shocked when he heard that the earliest batch of humans were not born in this world, but suddenly descended. As I said, it's just a legend. Chongsher forefather explained, according to the legend, at the beginning of this world, a group of humans descended, and at the same time, that ancient shrine that descended contained many cultivation techniques and many absolute arts. According to the legend, almost all the absolute arts of our world originated from that ancient shrine. Oh? Dongbua Shuang had a faint guess. He had always felt strange. In terms of strength, this world was far inferior to the deity world and abyss. There were not many paragons, and it was extremely difficult for a paragon to create an absolute art. Even if this world was born at the beginning of the cosmos, entering the 8th cosmos epoch at the same time as the deity world and abyss, it was already not bad for those few paragons to create 2 or 3 absolute arts. How could there be so many? It seemed that the possibility of this legend was extremely high. The cultivation techniques and absolute arts were all left behind by a powerful senior cultivator, possibly Ancestor Devil. Ancestor Devil did not leave behind many absolute arts in the deity world and abyss, so why did he leave so many in this world? Dongbua Shuang was also puzzled. Those absolute arts were originally taken away from the ancient shrine. Thus, there are no absolute arts left in the ancient shrine. Chongsher forefather said, thus, we are also suspicious of this legend. Other than that, there is another legend about the ancient shrine. It is said that as long as you can control the ancient shrine, you can become the strongest expert in this world and rule the entire world. Chongsher forefather sighed. Because of this legend, Paragon Emperor Su, of the Su Empire, directly built a nation at the region where the ancient shrine was located, occupying the ancient shrine for himself. Of course, if we ask, Sovereign Emperor Su will allow us to enter. However, the ancient shrine was indeed mysterious and frightening. As soon as I stepped through the door, I was forced to kneel on the ground by an invisible pressure. I had no choice but to crawl out. Chongsher forefather recalled and shook his head. It said that even Paragon Emperor Su and the others could not enter the ancient shrine. Oh? Dongbua Shuang narrowed his eyes. Because Chongsher forefather cultivated in an absolute art, his strength was not to be underestimated. Yet the moment he entered the ancient shrine, he was forced to kneel down. The ancient shrine was indeed mysterious. If I control the ancient shrine, I will become the strongest in this world and rule the entire world. Dongbua Shuang thought, no matter what, the many absolute arts I was curious about previously seemed to originate from the ancient shrine. Like Fei Hua Palace Head and the others, they should have never seen a stage 4 world deity opening their Tao. Seeing how strong I am, they immediately guessed that I have something to do with the ancient shrine. This ancient shrine is indeed not ordinary. It might be the final destination that the Ancestor Devil star map led me to. Dongbua Shuang thought. He had been in seclusion in this world for over 1,000 years. Over the past 1,000 years, the ancient shrine was his most probable destination. And then, Dongbua Shuang frowned. Patriarch, I'm going out for a walk. Chongsher forefather was slightly startled. Why did he suddenly want to go out for a walk? Chongsher forefather did not dare to refute. He smiled. I shall not disturb honored guest Fei Shue then. If honored guest has anything, feel free to instruct me. And then, Dongbua Shuang walked out. Currently, the sky was dark and night had descended. Dongbua Shuang walked within the vast residence of the Chung family. Very soon, he arrived at the lakeside. There was a black-robed figure standing by the lakeside. This black-robed figure was completely wrapped in black, revealing only a pair of purple eyes. If I'm not wrong, you should be Spectre Prefecture Master. Dongbua Shuang said. It's me. Honored guest Fei Shue is indeed amazing. I sneaked in and tried to sense you, but you discovered me. Spectre Prefecture Master said. Dongbua Shuang sighed. Spectre Prefecture Master's sneaking technique is indeed amazing. If not for Prefecture Master sensing me, I would not have discovered you. There were 5 paragons in this world. According to the current intelligence, the strongest were Paragon Emperor Su and Golden Fire Palace Head. They both had the combat power of an apex paragon. As for the other three, they were weaker by a level. Among them, Spectre Prefecture Master was slightly more special. He appeared and disappeared like a ghost, and he was the only one in this world who could teleport. Chapter 703. The shrine was very simple, and even the materials used to construct the shrine were ordinary stones. But after stepping through the doorstep of the deity palace, the suppressive might reached a whole new level. Shuang swept his gaze across the hall. The hall in front of him was about 5 kilometers wide. There was a passage paved with green rocks leading from the doorstep all the way to the end of the hall, where there was a stone door. According to the legends of this world, the ancient shrine had descended many epochs ago. From the looks of it, just the pressure alone is already so terrifying. It is indeed able to withstand the great apocalypse. Dongbua Shuang thought. Places like the Six Heavenly Will, Lake Heart Island Historical Remnant, and Starting Ground were all able to withstand the great apocalypse. Even the Three Chieftains' sacred mountain formed from the corpse of the ancient demon could withstand it. From this, one could see how strong the corpse of the ancient demon was. Dongbua Shuang walked over step by step. Because the pressure at the door was enough to make experts at the level of Chongshi forefather kneel, there was no one guarding the ancient shrine. Only the outermost layer was guarded by arrays. Paragon Emperor Su was very confident. He felt that other than Spectre Prefecture Master, who could stealthily enter, any other paragon would be discovered the moment they touched the arrays. However, Dongbua Shuang similarly stealthily entered. The green-colored stone path was only 5 kilometers long. Dongbua Shuang walked at a slower pace, but he still reached the end in a few breaths of time. I'm afraid that even ordinary supremacies would be crushed by the pressure here. Dongbua Shuang felt the pressure on his body. If I didn't cultivate the myriad devil true body, it would be tough for me to even stand straight. But now, it's still so easy. This stone door. Dongbua Shuang looked at the stone door in front of him. The stone door was a single entity, and was a sluice gate. Only by lifting the stone door up could one enter. Amen. Dongbua Shuang determined the type of exit. He still released his soul to inspect the stone door. It is indeed a sluice gate. It is the most ordinary mechanism, and as long as I lift it up, I can open the door. But must I lift it up? Dongbua Shuang reached out his hand and touched the gap at the edge of the stone door. He wanted to turn into mist and pass through it, but when he tried to pass through the gap, he felt an invisible resistance. Who? The mist condensed into Dongbua Shuang. I really can't slack off. Left with no choice, Dongbua Shuang reached out with both hands and grabbed onto the bottom gap of the stone door. The stone door trembled slightly. Dongbua Shuang was slightly shocked. Ever since he cultivated the initial scroll of the Thousand Demon True Body, he felt that his strength was ridiculously strong. Only the protectors from the ancestor mother religion that specialized in body cultivation from another cosmos could be stronger than him. Furthermore, they were the apex protectors. In the cultivator cosmos, his strength was already ridiculously high. Perhaps only the ascetic and a few others who had learned the myriad devil true body could compete with him in strength. Even after releasing 50% of his strength, he still couldn't lift it up. 70%. Dongbua Shuaying's strength was rising. 80%, 90%. Dongbua Shuaying's arms were vaguely becoming thicker. Finally, the stone door started rising slowly. The terrifying aura from Dongbua Shuaying's body surged out in all directions, blasting against the distant palace walls, causing the surrounding stone walls to rumble. Even though the impact of his aura was huge, it could not damage this ancient shrine at all. But because of the suppression in this place, even the mirage world was suppressed. Dongbua Shuaying could not conceal the commotion caused by his aura striking against the palace walls. I should be exposed soon. Dongbua Shuaying frowned. He could no longer care about that. He was using all his strength to lift this stone door. As the stone door was rising, unseen spatial ripples appeared beneath it. Dongba Shuang knew that it was this spatial ripple that obstructed him from tunneling through previously when he turned into mist. Even though this spatial ripple seemed ordinary, he could not tunnel through it even with his full strength. Rise! Dongba Shuang used both his arms to lift the stone door. At the same time, his body started expanding, lifting the stone door higher and higher. There were 2 paragons in the Su Empire. The 2 of them were teacher and disciple. Paragon Emperor Su's status was the highest. He was the first paragon of this epoch. His current strength was also unfathomable. His understanding towards the ancient shrine was much deeper than Chongsher forefather. He was clear that the legends were true. Thus, he desired to possess the ancient shrine even more. But, what made Paragon Emperor Su feel helpless was that he could not even lift that stone door. After entering the shrine, I have to walk step by step to the stone door and lift it up. Only then would I be able to see the legendary flight of stairs, and at the top of the flight of stairs, is the ultimate of everything, the Black Gourd. Standing on a balcony in his palace, Paragon Emperor Su looked at the ancient shrine within the boundaries of his palace. His eyes were filled with desire. As long as I can obtain this Black Gourd, I will be able to obtain the ultimate power. I will then be able to truly leave this world and enter the vast cosmos outside. It had come to this point. He was clear that this vast world they lived in was merely a small hidden corner of the cosmos. But our epic is too weak. Boom, Dongba Shuang finally raised the stone door completely. After raising it to the highest point, the stone door was stuck. At the same time, the spatial ripples naturally dissipated. Who? Within the vast hall, white fog surged out, causing Dongba Shuaying's body to stagger slightly. The surrounding temperature rose rapidly, instantly reaching a temperature comparable to the surface of the sun. However, this black gourd caused him to involuntarily feel fear. Clearly, it was a treasure that far surpassed his level. Boom! Dongba Shuang stepped onto the first step. When he stepped on it, it was as though he was stepping on his own soul, causing his entire soul to tremble. Dongba Shuang, who had never expected his soul to suffer such an impact, couldn't help but sway. Heart like a blade. Dongba Shuaying's heart cultivation had already reached the second level. He was able to adapt very quickly as he took the second step, stepping onto the second step. Boom! The instant he stepped on it, his soul also suffered a terrifying impact. This impact was even stronger than before. However, this time around, his heart was prepared, and he was able to adapt quickly. Seems like it won't be easy to obtain this black gourd. Dongba Shuang raised his head and looked at the highest point of the staircase. The entire staircase seemed to be emitting formless ripples. Dongba Shuang faintly understood that he had to walk up the staircase step by step. If he tried to forcefully stretch his arm out to grab the black gourd or fly up, he would definitely suffer an even more terrifying punishment. The ripples contained within the staircase far surpassed his own, causing Dongba Shuang to be extremely obedient. Since this staircase was left behind intentionally by a senior, he had to follow the rules set by the senior. If he were to break the rules, the consequences might not be something he could accept. Master! A voice rang out. Swish! A figure darted into the ancient shrine. It was a silver-haired handsome young man. He swiftly arrived beside Paragon Emperor Su, but his body was clearly trembling slightly. Just entering the inner hall of the ancient shrine had already required him to use all his strength. Dongba Shuang glanced into the distance. This silver-haired handsome young man was the other paragon of the Su Empire, Paragon Kenhuang. He had a domineering reputation, but his strength was a level lower than Paragon Emperor Su. He could be considered an ordinary paragon. He is a guest elder of the Feishu Empire. Paragon Kenhuang looked at the black-robed young man with slight shock. And then, Paragon Emperor Su raised his head and nodded, he is very powerful. He lifted the stone door and stepped on the staircase. I thought he would fall the moment he stepped on the staircase. Who would have thought that he would reach the second step? Lifted the stone door. Even Master and Golden Fire Palace Master were unable to lift the stone door, but he was able to. Paragon Kenhuang didn't dare to believe it. If he wasn't the one who lifted the stone door, then who was it? Paragon Emperor Su said indifferently. And in the distance, Dongba Shuang was slowly ascending the staircase step by step. With every step, he would have to slow down and endure the soul shock. He is already halfway up the staircase and is still ascending. Paragon Kenhuang's expression changed. Master, didn't you say that even though lifting the stone door is hard, the staircase is even harder? He shouldn't be able to reach the end. Paragon Emperor Su said softly, moreover, he will soon be affected by the Black Gourd's void shock. Indeed. The Black Gourd was emitting a terrifying might. The space around it was distorted, while the outer layer was filled with white fog. As Dongba Shuang ascended the staircase step by step, he got closer and closer. Finally, he started to touch the distorted space. Hong, the terrifying might smashed against his body. Dongba Shuang, who was already mentally prepared, felt as though his legs were rooted to the ground as he forcefully resisted. This powerful force smashed against the surface of his body, bringing with it an even higher temperature. Furthermore, as he ascended the staircase, he suffered an even stronger soul shock. However, with the weakening of the extreme annihilation mysterious body and the strength of the myriad devil true body, Dongba Shuang was still able to resist this vile environment. The closer I get to the Black Gourd, the greater the threat. I'm afraid even peak paragons wouldn't be able to get close to it. Dongba Shuang was speechless. This might was too terrifying. It was already like an existence in the legends. He took another step. Dongba Shuang continued advancing. Paragon Emperor Su had been watching. When he saw that Dongba Shuang was still able to stand stably after suffering the impact of the distorted space, his expression changed. If this continued, he would reach the end. At that time, he would be able to take away the Black Gourd. Could it be like the legends? Could it be that by controlling the Black Gourd, one would be able to rule the entire world and even leave this world to enter the vast universe? We must not let him obtain it. Paragon Emperor Su waved his hand. Who? Large amounts of white silk threads flew out from his hand and swept towards Dongba Shuang at an extremely fast speed. And then, Dongba Shuang, who was standing on the staircase, had a slight change in expression as he looked at the incoming white silk threads. Break! He instantly drew his sword and slashed, forming a vortex. The vortex tore apart countless white silk threads. Countless white silk threads tangled with the vortex, affecting the divine sword. Dongba Shuang stood there and didn't dare to move forward. Because against the attack of a peak paragon, he didn't have the confidence to stand stably on the staircase. He would definitely fall down. Boundless world. Paragon Emperor Su's eyes flashed with silver light. Hua hua hua. Countless white silk threads suddenly transformed into a black hole. The inside of the black hole was pitch black, producing a heaven-shaking suction force that acted on Dongba Shuang's body. Currently, Dongba Shuang was constantly defending against the void impact from the Black Gourd. Now that he was suddenly affected by the suction force, he was no longer able to stand stably. He was swallowed by the suction force and fell down the staircase. Just as he was out of the staircase, Dongba Shuang immediately turned around and slashed furiously with his sword. A dazzling sword light wreaked havoc in the sky and slashed onto the distant black hole. The black hole trembled but didn't dissipate. However, the suction force was greatly reduced. Dongba Shuang landed on the ground of the hull. He raised his head and looked at the Black Gourd at the top of the staircase. He then looked at the cold Paragon Emperor Su. You want to obstruct me? You aren't worthy of this Black Gourd. Paragon Emperor Su said coldly. He had occupied this place for a very long time. This black gourd should be his. No one should even think about snatching it away. It seems like I have to chase you out first. Dongbo Shui Ying's eyes flashed with coldness. Chapter 705. Disciple, let's work together to tie him down. We absolutely cannot let him obtain the black gourd. Paragon Emperor Su stared at the distant Dongbo Shuang. His eyes were cold. In the legends, whoever obtained the black gourd would be able to rule the entire world. They could even leave and enter the vast cosmos. Regardless of the reason, he would not allow any other expert to obtain it. Yes, Master. Paragon Kenhuang also unsheathed the sword in his hand. Letting your disciple stay behind is the same as sending him to his death. Dongbo Shuang wielded his divine sword and walked forward step by step. Each step created afterimages as the distance between them rapidly shortened. With just you. Paragon Kenhuang was clearly confident. He knew that Dongbo Shuang had killed Feihua Palace head of the Skyfire Palace in just a few moves. However, he believed that he was more proficient in survival. In a one-on-one battle, it shouldn't be a problem for him to withstand 7 to 8 moves from guest elder Feishua. Now, with his master by his side, his survival was even more assured. Boom! Dongbo Shuang suddenly waved his sword. Kill! Paragon Emperor Su's silver hair danced in the air. Countless white silk strands danced with his body at the center, forming many layers of maelstrom. Those layers of maelstrom seemed to lead to another world, and these maelstrom enveloped Shuang. Paragon Kenhuang was much more dazzling. Together with his sword, he turned into a dazzling golden light and charged at Dongbo Shuang. Because the power of the white mist within the ancient shrine was too great, the lightning and fire of the laws of heaven and earth were unable to form. However, Dongbo Shuiying's speed was actually slower because the restrictions within the ancient shrine were much stronger than the outside world. Myriad Devil True Body, 100%. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying's heart was on the black gourd. He didn't have the mood to waste too much time. Earlier, when he lifted the stone door, he had exposed his strength. Boom! Boom! With the extreme speed of Dongbo Shuiying's myriad devil true body, he swung his sword twice in a row. The first strike landed on the dazzling golden sword light, instantly dispersing the golden sword light. Ken Huang, who was inside the sword light, revealed a look of terror. Following that, his body completely exploded. The second strike also landed on the layers of whirlpools. The twisting forces in the whirlpools kept weakening the power. However, the power contained in Dongbo Shuiying's divine sword was too strong. Emperor Su was forced to step back to defend himself. While he was defending himself, he was shaken by the strong impact, and was sent flying out of the ancient celestial palace. Supremacy Emperor Su retreated over 150 miles before standing in the air. He looked at the black-robed youth in disbelief. How could this be? Just 2 sword strikes. Paragon Kenhuang died, and Paragon Emperor Su was forced back. Dongbo Shuang looked at the weapons and other treasures of Paragon Kenhuang. Actually, Paragon Kenhuang had died quite unjustly. If not for him being in the ancient celestial palace, he would have been able to reform his body even if his body was destroyed. However, the entrance of the outer hall of the ancient celestial palace could force Chongshi forefather to kneel, and the pressure from the inner hall was practically the limit of Paragon Kenhuang. When he was in perfect condition, there was naturally no problem. But the moment his body was destroyed, the resistance of his shattered body would be much weaker. Under the pressure from the inner hall, not even Paragon Emperor Su could save him in time. He actually dared to clash head-on with me. Dongbo Shuang shook his head and muttered. In the end, his body was destroyed, and he was even killed by the pressure from the inner hall. How could he know? Although Paragon Kenhuang knew that the strength needed to raise the stone door was huge, he did not know exactly how much strength was required. Furthermore, when Dongbo Shuang fought with Feihua Palace Master previously, he did not use pure strength to blast the other party apart. He merely sent him flying. In addition, he was confident in his sword techniques, which was why he naturally cooperated with his teacher. Who would have thought that he was so wrong? When Dongbui Shuang fought with Fei Hua Palace Master, he could only display 50% of his strength. But this time, he was using all his strength. This stone door? Dongbui Shuang walked to the place where he raised the stone door. He raised his head and frowned. The stone door is stuck after being raised, but it can't be lowered anymore. If he could lower the stone door, he would be able to obtain the black gourd in peace. After obtaining the black gourd, he could just raise it again. But in reality, even if he raised the stone door, he had no way of making it lower. World deity Feishuat. The distant Paragon Emperor Su roared furiously. The stone door can't be lowered. It seems like I can only kill you so that you won't disturb me. Dongbui Shuang transformed into a stream of light and rushed out. Although Paragon Emperor Su and Paragon Kenhuang still had their avatars, they would be spread far apart to prevent the enemy from killing them all in one fell swoop. Therefore, as long as he killed Paragon Emperor Su, no one would be able to disturb him for a short period of time. Even if the Spectre Prefecture Master used his karmic senses to determine his location, it would still take him quite some time to rush over. Boom! Outside the ancient shrine, Dongbui Shuang and Paragon Emperor Su clashed again. What happened? What happened? Why is there such a huge commotion? The entire Su Empire was in an uproar. They could clearly see the commotion in the direction of the royal palace. Many figures flew out in fright as they looked in the direction of the ancient shrine with fear and unease. In the direction of the ancient shrine, there were two terrifying existences fighting. Fortunately, their power was suppressed by the laws of the world and the ancient shrine. Thus, the shockwaves were greatly weakened. Even so, the weakened shockwaves continued to clash with the royal palace's array. Paragon Emperor Su, you want to escape? Do you think you can escape? A cold voice rang out. I won't stop you, I won't stop you. Paragon Emperor Su was slightly flustered as he escaped into his own palace. He wanted to use the array to defend. Boom boom boom. Just 12 consecutive violent sword lights tore the array apart. Dongbui Shuang transformed into a dazzling stream of lightning and fire as he chased after the escaping Paragon Emperor Su. Paragon Emperor Su was in a sorry and regretful state. He is actually so strong. The absolute art of the Tao of Slaughter, 6 sever sword styles, complemented Dongbui Shuaying's Tao of Slaughter, allowed his sword techniques to be extremely powerful in terms of offense and slaughter. If it was just this, Paragon Emperor Su wouldn't be afraid and would still have the upper hand. However, that myriad devil true body had a suppressive power, causing Paragon Emperor Su to be completely suppressed. In the God realm and the abyssal abyss, if one was simply suppressed, one might be skilled in spacetime or in the infinity realm, and they might even be able to escape with their lives. But in this world, the laws of the world were too powerful. Their flying speed was also very slow, making it much harder to escape. Pooh! Chi Dongbui Shuang had the absolute advantage in speed. After catching up to his opponent, he unleashed his sword of slaughter to his heart's content. With terrifying strength and speed combined with the profound profundities of his sword techniques, the power he could unleash was naturally incredible. That Protector Huizhu might be stronger than Dongbui Shuang, but in terms of cultivation realm, he was much weaker. If they fought again, the situation would be completely different. I don't even dare to stop you, so why are you chasing me so relentlessly? Guest Elder Feishua, I acknowledge your strength and position. From now on, we don't need to be enemies. Paragon Emperor Su continued to persuade. The main reason was because he was too confident in the past. Although his clone was far away, his main body, which was usually in the Su Empire, carried his most important weapons and treasures. In his opinion, in this world, who could kill him? It was already very prudent for him to hide his clone in a faraway place. Why didn't you stop just now? Now that you know you can't win, you are begging for mercy. Shui Ying's hands did not stop moving. Even though the other party's defenses were amazing, his frightening strength allowed him to injure Paragon Emperor Su with every sword. Furthermore, I don't need you to acknowledge my strength and status. Boom boom boom, every single sword light engulfed Paragon Emperor Su. After the time it took to brew half a cup of tea, Paragon Emperor Su's body finally collapsed. His life force was exhausted and he was quickly destroyed. Paragon Emperor Su was dead. Quick, Spectre Prefecture Master, bring the four of us to the ancient shrine to stop world deity Feishue. He has already killed my disciple. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. He will soon retrieve the ancient shrine's black gourd. We must think of a way to retrieve it and not let him snatch it away. Paragon Emperor Su was still asking for help while fighting against Dongbu Shuang. The Lord of Spectre Prefecture and the two palace masters of Skyfire Palace were shocked. A paragon of the Su Empire had died in battle. Even the oldest paragon Emperor Su couldn't hold on for long. This guest elder Feishue was too terrifying. Retrieve the ancient shrine's black gourd? That was a legendary item. At this moment, the three of them had their own thoughts. However, Spectre Prefecture Master still agreed to bring the four of them to the ancient shrine. Chapter 706. Dongbu Shuang looked around. The entire Su Empire was in a state of chaos. Even though the shockwaves from the battle in the sky were weakened by the laws and the capital's arrays, the countless cultivators in the capital saw with their own eyes that the invincible Paragon Emperor Su was killed by a black-robed young man wielding a sword. The five of them are quite far from here. Dongbu Shuang relied on karma to sense that the five paragons were more than 3 trillion kilometers away from here. With their speed, no one would be able to disturb him for the time being. South Dongbu Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew into the ancient shrine. Very soon, he entered the inner hall. Raising his head to look at the highest point of the stairs, the black gourd was still faintly glowing in red. The ripples it emitted caused the surrounding void to distort, and there was even white fog rolling around it. Such power should have lasted for a few epochs. There are no more paragons around. Even though there are still powerful existences in the Su Empire, they probably wouldn't be able to stand up straight in the inner hall. Dongbu Shuang was very sure that since even Chongsher Forefather could only kneel at the entrance of the outer hall, there was a limit to the powerful existences in the Su Empire. Dongbu Shuang let out a long breath. He allowed his true deity heart to regain its calm and made preparations for climbing the stairs. Previously, the stairs were destroyed, but even if it wasn't, could he reach the end of the stairs? Even if he reached the end, could he pick up the black gourd? He had no confidence. He sensed that the Spectre Prefecture Master of the Five Venerables was teleporting at high speed towards the Skyfire Palace. He did not rush towards the Su Empire. They know that they are not strong enough, so they are preparing to team up. Dongbu Shuang chuckled, not treating them as a threat. He took a step. Dong! When his left foot stepped on the stairs, it was as though he was stepping on his soul, causing his true deity heart to ring. However, the experienced Dongbu Shuang remained unmoved. After calming his true deity heart, he took the second step. Step by step, he kept climbing upwards. Indeed, no almighties dared to come and destroy it. Not even one person dared to enter the shrine because the deaths of the Su Empire's two venerables were too great of a deterrence. As he climbed higher and higher up the stairs, he got closer and closer to the black gourd. The distorted void ripples struck against his body, and the temperature grew hotter and hotter. The soul shockwaves also grew stronger, but Dongbu Shuang still gritted his teeth and continued climbing. Gradually, Dongbu Shuang felt as though everything around him was rumbling. He knew that, in reality, the surroundings were relatively quiet. It was his own soul that was roaring. It was incomparably hot. Explosions rang out incessantly. Dongbu Shuang began to sway as he walked, but he gritted his teeth and held on. His will was like a blade. His will flowed through his entire true deity heart. Even though he was swaying, he continued to move forward. Every time he stopped for a while, he would take a step forward. Finally, he reached the spot closest to the black gourd. Suddenly, the dark red color on the surface of the black gourd suddenly disappeared, and so did the terrifying heat and energy waves. Following that, the gourd flew into Dongbu Shuiying's arms. This? Dongbu Shuiying hugged the black gourd in a daze. I got it just like that. He had thought of many difficulties. He was worried that the black gourd was too hot, and that he would have to take it away through the void. He was worried that there would be an even more terrifying shockwave. In reality, the moment he walked in front of it, it flew into his arms. This black gourd? Dongbu Shuiying hugged the black gourd, and a strand of his luminous sun force tried to seep into it. But the moment his luminous sun force entered, it came into contact with the terrifying heat, and was instantly incinerated into nothingness. Brat, this black gourd isn't something you can control. A slightly sharp voice rang out. Although the voice was rather loud, it was very pleasant to listen to. It was like a beautiful melody. At the same time, a blurry figure appeared in the air in front of Dongbu Shuiying. Dongbu Shuiying hugged the gourd, and looked at the figure in front of him with some surprise. This was a life form with a very unique appearance and attire, and it gave Dongbu Shuiying a very unique feeling. He was in a human form, and his robes were like his skin, sticking to every part of his body. His robes were mainly silver and gold. The skin on his face was green, and his hands were also green. His hair was silvery white, and it was tied into small braids. His eyebrows were also silvery white, and they were like two swords. There were 3 golden horns on his head, and his eyes were also golden. Obviously, this was an appearance that Dongbu Shuiying had never seen before. It was fine if it was just the appearance. After all, what other races did they not have? However, this figure gave Dongbu Shuiying a very unique feeling. Even though it was just a figure, it still emitted an aura. This aura was different from any other aura he had felt in the past. It wasn't a common pressure, nor was it like Monarch Green's aura that made people submit to him, nor was it like Pang Yi's aura that made people feel close. Instead, it was a type of nothingness. It was as though he was a member of the void of the world, vast and boundless. It was like the sky, but it also felt even higher and more vast than the sky. The fireball within this black gourd, in terms of strength, is on the same level as the sun star of your cosmos. You can think of it as the sun star hidden within this gourd. The silver-haired, golden-horned man grinned. You foolishly tried to control it? Even the hegemons among you wouldn't be able to do so. Dongbu Shuiying was stunned. What? The black gourd had emitted a terrifying temperature earlier, but that fireball within it was on the same level as the sun star? What was the sun star? Every epoch had its own sun star and moon star. They were the core of the cosmos, and if a hegemon dared to enter, he or she would instantly die. In terms of strength, the sun star and moon star far surpassed the hegemons. Dongbu Shuiying hugged the black gourd in front of him and lowered his head to take a look. He didn't dare believe that a terrifying existence comparable to the sun star was hidden within. You can't even control it, much less refine it. The silver-haired, golden-horned man said. Dongbu Shuiying listened obediently. So what if his master had been to the other 2 cosmos? He had actually met a terrifying existence that placed an existence similar to the sun star within the black gourd? I was forced to leave my hometown and wandered the cosmos, passing through many cosmos. The silver-haired, golden-horned man laughed. Suddenly, one day, I realized that I didn't even have a single disciple. Therefore, I decided to accept apprentices. I spent a lot of effort to craft 6 gourds and threw them in 6 different universes. I set up many tests in each of them, and only those who passed the tests could become my apprentices and become one of the Voidwalkers. Voidwalker? Dongbu Shuiying's heart was filled with doubt. The Voidwalker is a very unique cultivation system. It is different from the cultivation system of your cosmos. Naturally, you can cultivate both. The Voidwalker lineage is extremely difficult to cultivate. Thus, I set up many tests. The Voidwalker lineage is extremely rare. Thus, I left behind 6 gourds. These 6 gourds will also be your Dao Protector treasures. I hope that they will be able to protect you when you are still weak. The silver-haired, golden-horned man shook his head. However, I reckon that even one of my 6 disciples would be able to reach my level. Don't be anxious. You are not my disciple yet. In the 5th epoch of your cosmos, I came to your cosmos. I discovered that this cosmos was created by that old fogey, Tianyu. Furthermore, this cosmos even gave birth to a very monstrous cultivator. He was actually able to barge into the starting ground left behind by that old fogey Tianyu. It seems like the cultivators of your cosmos have quite a bit of potential. That's why you left behind an inheritance here. I placed a star map in the 6 paths Tian Luan created by that ancestor devil. Only those who are able to pass his 3 devil halls test and are young enough would be able to obtain that star map. I placed a total of 12 star maps in there. The silver-haired, golden-horned man said. Only those who obtained the star map would be allowed to enter this world. Dongbua Shuang was finally certain. Previously, he was puzzled. Be it the ancestor devil or the Lake Heart Island master, they did not leave behind many absolute arts in the deity world and abyss. Why were there so many absolute arts in this world? So it turned out that the star map was not left behind by the ancestor devil. It was placed into the ancestor devil's treasure vault by this voidwalker. One of the 6 gourds refined from it, the black gourd, was already this strong. But this voidwalker was actually forced to leave his hometown. He even knew the old ancestor of the starting ground, Ancestor Tianyu. Ancestor Tianyu was the creator of this cosmos. With so many secrets, Dongbua Shuang was a little dazed. Obtaining the black gourd is merely the first trial. The silver-haired, golden-horned man smiled. I will now impart a technique to you. By relying on this technique, you will be able to control the black gourd. You need to master this technique within 5 years. This can be considered the second trial. As for the third trial, it is for you to think of a way. Remember, think of a way yourself. You are not allowed to rely on anyone else to refine the black gourd within 1,000,000 years. Once you pass the third trial, you will naturally know the location of the inheritance and receive the inheritance. If you fail, the black gourd will return here and wait for the next brat with potential. I have left behind a total of 12 star maps. The silver-haired, golden-horned man smiled. At the same time, his figure transformed into countless runes which tunneled into Dongbua Shuiying's forehead. Chapter 707. Within his sea of consciousness. His true deity heart sat cross-legged as golden runes appeared in his sea of consciousness. The countless runes formed a complete cultivation technique. In terms of length, this cultivation technique could not compare to the vast amount of information contained in the luminous sun, extreme annihilation, mysterious body, 6 sword styles of severance, etc. It was merely a simple cultivation technique used to control the black gourd. However, when Dongbua Shuang started to study it carefully, he could not help but read it slower and slower. This was because every rune contained many profound mysteries, and when they were combined together, there were many ways to decipher it. As he read, he finally finished the entire cultivation technique. However, Dongbua Shuang was confused. So strange. Dongbua Shuang was at a loss. In the past, it was extremely difficult to comprehend. However, this cultivation technique seemed to be very easy. Every rune contained many mysteries, and these mysteries were combined to form many different cultivation techniques. I comprehended 16 cultivation techniques after reading it once. Dongbua Shuang hugged the black gourd in his embrace and tried to control it. Wang! Runes formed from the luminous sun force started to condense in midair. These runes flowed into the black gourd, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no sound at all, as they were completely incinerated by the terrifying flames within the black gourd. This cultivation technique is wrong. Dongbua Shuang was not surprised. He continued to try, and very soon, he had tried all 16 cultivation techniques. I say, that Voidwalker gave me 5 years to cultivate this cultivation technique. If I could comprehend it after reading it once, wouldn't the Voidwalker's test be too easy? Dongbua Shuang shook his head. This was within his expectations. However, I did not expect this cultivation technique to be so strange. It seems like I can decipher it any way I want. After reading it once, I was able to decipher 16 cultivation techniques. If I did not use the black gourd to verify it, I would not be able to judge whether it was right or wrong. The ancient cultivation technique was right in front of him. But no matter how he comprehended it, it was wrong. 5 years. Dongbua Shuang had already walked down the stairs. He turned back to look at the top of the stairs, and then at the black gourd in his embrace. He was still overwhelmed with emotions. Even though he had already comprehended the cultivation technique once, he was still shocked. The news that he knew was simply too unimaginable. This cosmos where the deity world and abyss was located was actually created by an ancient and powerful existence. He was the master of the starting ground, forefather Tianyu. No wonder the talisman of the starting ground was so powerful. It could easily reach the starting ground from any place in this universe. It could also easily reach any place in the universe from the starting ground. As for the opportunity that he obtained, it came from an existence whose strength should be close to that of forefather Tianyu, the mysterious Voidwalker. Voidwalkers referred to experts of a special cultivation system, and there were very few of them. Just how vast is this world? Just what level can one reach in cultivation? Dongbua Shuang was filled with anticipation towards the possibility of obtaining the cultivation system of the Voidwalkers. Up till now, he had only been cultivating the orthodox cultivation system. He had comprehended the profound laws of the universe and opened up his own path, while his body was developing an internal world. He had never trained in any of the other cultivation systems, and although he had tried to train in Hegemen Pangyi's cultivation system, he hadn't been able to gain a basic understanding of it. It was obvious that the more special a technique was, the harder it was to learn it. The lineage of the Voidwalkers was probably even harder to learn. At least for now, Dongbua Shuang had passed the test. There were still 2 more rounds of selection. If he failed, the black gourd would naturally return to this world, and he would no longer have a chance. This stone door is actually stuck. It can't descend. Dongbua Shuang stood at the entrance of the ancient shrine's inner hall. He raised his head and looked at the stone door. At the same time, he sensed that the Spectre Prefecture Master had already gathered with the other 4 paragons. Paragon Emperor Su, Paragon Kenhuang, and Paragon Feihua had also cultivated their clones. They had long prepared the embryos and used the time acceleration to cultivate them. If I descend, no one will be able to disturb me when I cultivate in the inner hall. Dongbua Shuang frowned. There was actually no place in this world where he could cultivate in peace. If he was attacked by 5 paragons at every moment, how could he cultivate? Only his main body, which was far away in Crimson Rock Mountain, could cultivate peacefully. As for this clone, the effect of cultivating was almost negligible. This meant that he was only using 50% of his strength to go through the test. Of course it won't descend. A clear voice rang out. Dongbua Shuang started. A chubby child appeared on the black gourd in his bosom. The child was about the size of a palm. He sat on the black gourd and hugged the head of the gourd. The chubby child was only wearing a red undergarment that was as dazzling as a flame. The rest of his skin was exposed. You are? Dongbua Shuang looked at the child on the black gourd. Don't you know who I am? Of course, I'm the treasure spirit of your Tao protector treasure, the black gourd. The palm-sized child stood up on the black gourd. Do you think that I don't have a treasure spirit? They continued to teleport forward. Very soon, south, after teleporting for nearly 100 million kilometers, they arrived at the capital of the Su Empire. The five of them stood in the air and saw the most dazzling palace of the Su Empire. There was a black-robed young man standing there. He looked over and smiled. "You're all here, 5 of you, not one less." Chapter 708. Dongbua Shuang stood at the top of the palace. His robe fluttered in the wind and he looked very relaxed. Seeing the attitude and confidence of this world deity flying snow, it made the hearts of the 5 paragons who originally had their own thoughts tremble. They became even more uneasy. "Universe God Feishua, you got the black gourd?" Reverend Emperor Su asked. Fei Hua Palace Master, Golden Fire Palace Master and the others looked at Dongbua Shuang. "Yes, I got it." "You're too late," Dongbua Shuang nodded and smiled. Swoosh! The master of the Spectre Prefecture, who was wrapped in a black robe and only revealed a pair of purple eyes, teleported to the doorway of the shrine of the ancient shrine in the distance. Then, he quickly flew inside. Through the stone door that had been opened long ago, he could easily see the top of the flight of stairs in the shrine of the ancient shrine. The black gourd that should have been there had disappeared. Phew! The master of Spectre Prefecture quickly returned to his 4 companions after he teleported out of the ancient shrine. His 4 companions looked at him and the master of Spectre Prefecture nodded, but his eyes were still on Dongbua Shuang. "The black gourd is really with Universe God Feishua." "What? He really got it?" They were shocked and nervous. Because since the birth of the world and the descent of the ancient shrine, the person who got the black gourd would be able to rule the entire world. He could even leave and enter the vast universe. The legend had been spreading. Over the years, there were people who lifted the stone door but no one succeeded in getting the black gourd. Never in history. Then, the legend was broken. A mysterious universe god Feishua, took the black gourd. What kind of power does the black gourd possess? Universe god Feishua's power has increased tremendously, right? The 5 of them had many thoughts in their heads. After all, according to the legend, the person who got the black gourd would be able to rule the entire world. How could he rule without power? They felt that the black gourd definitely possessed great power. Now that guest Feishua had such power, he might be able to rule the entire world. Universe God Feishua. The black-haired golden fire palatial lord said, "I heard that obtaining the black gourd would allow one to leave this world and enter the vast universe outside. I wonder if it's true." "It's true." Dongbua Shuang nodded, not hiding anything. It was indeed true. If he failed the test, he would be expelled from this world and enter the vast universe of the God world and abyss. If he succeeded, he would be able to enter and exit this world even more easily. The outer universe? The Golden Fire Palace Master, Fei Hua Palace Master, and the others held their breaths. They had been living in this world for a long time and had a yearning for a vaster world. "Can you take me into that universe?" "If you want to bring me away, I won't stop you," said the Golden Fire Palace Master. "Can it bring us into the outer universe?" Spectre Prefecture Master asked. There were other supremacies who wanted to speak. "No." Dongbua Shuang shook his head. The reason why the answer was so straightforward was because the artifact spirit had sent him a voice transmission. "You will be able to control the black gourd if you manage to master the technique within 5 years. You will be able to use the black gourd's power to leave this world. If you fail to master the technique, you will be expelled from this world. Regardless of the outcome, you are forbidden from bringing any other living beings with you, even if it is a wild beast. Naturally, if you become the new Voidwalker, I might be able to make an exception. I'm unable to bring all of you with me. Borrowing the power of the black gourd, I can only leave by myself." Dongbua Shuang said. The 5 supremacies fell silent. Supremacy Kenhuang couldn't help but ask, "World deity Feishua, is the power of the black gourd really that powerful? It can even rule over the entire world?" Yes, it's extremely powerful. Ruling over the entire world is an easy feat. Its power far surpasses your imagination. Dongbo Shui Ying's voice was filled with astonishment. That's right, the fireball contained within the black gourd was comparable to the sun star. If one could unleash its true might, even a tiny bit of it would be enough to kill a ruler. However, it should be extremely difficult to use it. Even after comprehending that technique, one could only gain an initial control over it. Far surpasses our imagination. The five supremacies felt an itch in their hearts. What kind of terrifying power was that? The black gourd might be very powerful, but if he had truly grasped it, there would be no need for him to tell us so much. Supremacy Emperor Su said, if we join forces and kill him, the black gourd will be ours. World Deity Feishuat. Spectre Prefecture Master said solemnly, as long as you are willing to share the power of the black gourd with us, we can choose not to act. There's no other way. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. Then let's act. Kill. Kill. Although the five supremacies had their own thoughts, Dongbo Shuang wasn't willing to cooperate, nor was he willing to share the black gourd with them. He didn't agree to help them enter the vast cosmos. They could only act together. Who? Dongbo Shuang, who was standing at the highest point of the roof, suddenly disappeared. And then, the five supremacies who were about to unleash their killing technique were startled. He does indeed have a technique similar to my Spectre world. Spectre Prefecture Master transmitted. The five supremacies had already guessed it. The main reason was that Dongbo Shuang had used too little time to rush from the Chung family to the Su Empire. It was impossible for him to fly normally, so he must have used teleportation. It was just that they thought that it was some special treasure that could do it. But from the looks of it, it was similar to Spectre Prefecture Masters. Pooh! 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 Five spear shadows appeared from the void and attacked the five supremacies at the same time. At Dongbo Shui Ying's level, the speed of his spear was too fast. He stabbed out 5 times at the same time. The attack from the Mirage world was too sudden. Even though Supremacy Kenhuang and Feihua Palace Master sensed it at the last moment, they were unable to block it in time and their chests were pierced through. This was a black spear with dark red patterns on it. It was a true god weapon of the eternal Tao of slaughter. In this world, even a weak true god weapon was rare. There had never been a true god weapon of the eternal Tao of slaughter. When the Voidwalkers left behind this world, absolute arts might seem precious, but to those who had already grasped them, they could easily create copies of them. Leaving behind many absolute arts was just a matter of convenience. As for weapons, they needed materials to forge them. To the Voidwalkers, they had to pay a higher price. Thus, there were very few true god weapons in this world. The Blood Serpent Spear was the first eternal Tao true god weapon to appear in this world. The absolute art of the Tao of slaughter, the Tao of slaughter that Dongbo Shuang created, and this true god weapon of the eternal Tao of slaughter. It was truly a perfect match. In order to bring Dongbo Shui Ying's attack to a whole new level, he had already mastered the 6 sword styles of Sever Sword style. Previously, he had been comprehending the usage of the laws of profound mysteries within. Now, he naturally used it on his spear. The Golden Fire Palace Master's body turned into a dazzling golden flame. When the spear pierced through his body was still intact. Following which, his expression changed as he roared, "There's hex poison." Paragon Emperor Su's body was surrounded by countless threads as he tried his best to defend against this spear. Although he coughed out blood due to the terrifying might of this spear, his injuries were still relatively light. The Spectre Prefecture Master instantly entered the Spectre world, causing Dongbo Shui Ying's spear to pierce through thin air. However, Paragon Kenhuang and Feihua Palace Master were in a pitiful state. This time's attack. This was the first time that Dongbo Shuang used his full strength. The power of the myriad devil true body was completely unleashed. He even used the Blood Serpent Spear. Paragon Kenhuang's body was instantly destroyed. Feihua Palace Master's remaining life force was also quickly exhausted by the power of the Blood Serpent Spear and the Hex Poison. Dongbua Shuang appeared once again. He stood there with a black spear in his hand. His gaze swept across the area. The remaining 3 paragons were slightly stunned. A single exchange. 2 paragons were dead. He has completely suppressed us. Paragon Emperor Su and Golden Fire Palace Master exchanged glances. The Spectre Prefecture Master rejoiced. Fortunately, he could hide in the Spectre world. Otherwise, he would have been killed. Dongbua Shuang was very calm. After opening the Mirage Dao, he was destined to be a terrifying assassin. He could suddenly execute his killer move, making it hard for the enemy to defend against it. How could ordinary venerables withstand his killer move with their defenseless bodies? That was why he managed to achieve such a result. Are you sure you want to continue fighting with me for the Black Gourd? Dongbua Shuang looked at the 3 of them. His voice reverberated through the world. Looking at the black-robed youth standing in midair, the 3 felt helpless in their hearts. At this moment, Dongbua Shuang was a little nervous. He was intentionally bluffing. He wasn't afraid that the other party would snatch the Black Gourd, but he was afraid that the other party would disturb his cultivation. The next 5 years were extremely important and he mustn't be disturbed. With his understanding of the many absolute arts in this world, even if he was hiding in the Mirage world, they could still use karma to determine his approximate location. They could still disturb him. You guys have no hope at all. You guys don't have any hope of obtaining the Black Gourd. If you continue fighting, the 3 holy lands will be destroyed. Dongbua Shuang continued to threaten them. I heard that you used to use a sword. Why did you change to a spear? The other 2 reverends looked at Dongbua Shuang. That's right. Previously, he had been using swordsmanship and its power was extraordinary. This time, he actually used a black spear and its power was obviously stronger and more domineering. I've always been best at using a spear. Dongbua Shuang grinned. Then before, Golden Fire Palace Master was confused. To comprehend the 6 sword styles of Sever, Dongbua Shuang said casually. Of course, that wasn't the real answer. When he first came to this world, Dongbua Shuang was worried that the top existences in this world could spy on the outside universe and know of the existence of Dongbua Shuang. In order to prevent himself from being exposed, he changed his appearance and even changed his weapon. But after he got the Black Gourd and understood everything, he knew that they couldn't spy on the outside universe. Hence, he naturally wasn't worried. 6 sword styles of Sever. The 3 reverends nodded faintly. However, they were still confused. Even if he comprehended a unique skill, he still used a sword during battle. Dongbua Shuang smiled and his appearance changed slightly. This. The 3 of them were stunned. This is my true appearance. Dongbua Shuang smiled. Previously when I entered the Chung family, I was worried that someone might have seen me before. Hence, I changed slightly. I see. Universe God Feishue was too polite to the Chung family. As long as Universe God Feishue displayed his power, they would definitely hand over their unique skills respectfully. Reverend Emperor Su said. The most important thing is the process. Dongbua Shuang smiled. Everyone, since it's done, I shall make a move first. Then, he teleported and disappeared. The 3 reverends looked at one another. Facing Universe God Feishue was really stressful. After all, he didn't use the mysterious Black Gourd from the start. I hope he leaves within 10,000 years, Spectre Mansion Master said. For the next 10,000 years, we shall stay together temporarily. Don't let him take us down one by one, Reverend Emperor Su said. The 3 of them were willing to accept the outcome, but they weren't in a good mood. They had teamed up and prepared well. However, Dongbua Shuaying's 5 spear strikes had shocked them. His spear skills were so ferocious. And he could teleport. They instantly lost confidence in their original plan. In addition, Dongbu Shuang wasn't willing to continue fighting. Hence, they naturally took advantage of the situation. Deep in the mountains, on the peak of a mountain, Dongbu Shuang, who was dressed in a black robe, appeared. He smiled faintly and waved his hand. Countless bamboos flew up from the bamboo forest at the foot of the mountain. Countless branches were sliced cleanly in the air. Pieces of bamboos landed on the mountain peak and formed a bamboo house. At the same time, the land veins within 100 million miles started to change. A huge formation was formed, isolating the 100 million miles from the outside world. Anyone from the outside world would be trapped in an illusion. With the illusion formation, the 5 reverends would be discovered the moment they entered. They don't know that I still need to comprehend the technique. They are most afraid of disturbing me. With just a few simple sentences, they gave up. Dongbu Shuang was in a good mood. Being able to make them give up was also because he had displayed his full strength from the start. If he didn't have the ability to teleport, the 5 of them would definitely work together and use some treasures to fight him. After all, they had clones. This technique. Dongbu Shuang entered the bamboo house. There was a bamboo bed and a bamboo table. Sitting cross-legged, he took out a bottle of fermented fruit wine and poured himself a cup. He was in a good mood as he drank it. Following which, he waved his hand and placed the black gourd on the table. He started to focus on comprehending the technique left behind by the Voidwalker. Within his sea of consciousness, golden runes flashed. The ripples of each rune were extremely profound. This time, Dongbu Shuang calmed his heart and started to comprehend. Far away in the immaterial world of the universe, the white-robed main body was also doing his best to comprehend. The situation in this world was changing. All the powerful existences were trying to find out about the battle between world deity Feishue and the 5 reverends in the sky of the Tsu Empire. Many people had seen it, including powerful existences. Thus, they were able to understand what had happened after asking around. A single exchange. 2 reverends died in battle. The Golden Fire Palace Master and the other 2 reverends finally compromised. Although most of them didn't know that the black gourd had landed in the hands of Dongbu Shuang, the scene of that battle was enough to shock all the superpowers. There were even powerful existences who took the initiative to request to meet with Dongbu Shuang. Even the Chung family transmitted messages to Dongbu Shuang. To this, Dongbu Shuang's reply was, "I'm not interested in building a sacred ground. I'm currently in seclusion. Don't disturb me." The sun rose and set. The wind blew and the rain fell. The weeds on the mountain peak turned from green to yellow. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years passed. Regardless of whether it was his avatar in this world or his original body in his hometown, the Xia people's world, they were all in seclusion. He even told his wife not to disturb him unless the sky was falling. Boom, the sky was filled with dark clouds. Lightning snakes wreaked havoc in the vast sky. Heavy rain poured down. Dongbu Shuang stood in front of the bamboo house, next to the cliff of the mountain peak, allowing the rain to pour on his body. It's been 3 years and I still haven't mastered it. I've already comprehended thousands of techniques, but they're all wrong. They're all wrong. No matter how I comprehend them, they're all wrong. Dongbu Shuang raised his head and looked at the lightning in the sky. His eyes were filled with anxiousness and violence. What's going on? Where did I go wrong? His anxiousness and terrifying willpower caused the lightning in the sky to freeze. Following which, they were completely annihilated. The dark clouds in the sky disappeared. The rain disappeared, revealing a clear sky. Dongbu Shuang stood on the mountain peak and looked at the sky coldly. Chapter 710. Every time he failed, he would summarize his experience and try to comprehend it again. After comprehending the cultivation technique that he believed to be the most promising, he would try it again with confidence. However, the black gourd in front of him remained unmoved. The terrifying might contained within it easily incinerated the energy that he sent in. After failing time and time again, thousands of failures, even Dongbui Shuang started to feel anxious. He had tried many methods. In fact, he did not even summarize his experience and simply tried to comprehend it randomly. He would comprehend one technique after another and try to guess. Who knew, maybe he would be right. He spent 3 months to comprehend more than 2,000 cultivation techniques. However, all of them ended up in failure. Who? Dongbui Shuang exhaled deeply. A mountain in front of him was directly destroyed by the air current he exhaled. Violent hurricanes formed in the surroundings. Fortunately, in order to prevent any disturbances, there were no humans within 50,000 kilometers of him. Even if there were people who used to live here, they would be teleported away by Dongbui Shuang using his Mirage Dao. After calming himself down, Dongbui Shuang turned and returned to his bamboo house. He sat cross-legged in the bamboo house and poured himself a cup of precious fruit wine. After savoring it, he finally regained his composure. I definitely can't continue like this. Dongbui Shuang thought to himself, I have already failed thousands of times. Even if I were to continue comprehending these techniques in the remaining 2 years, I would most likely fail again. Perhaps I have been thinking wrongly all this while. Dongbui Shuang closed his eyes. Within his sea of consciousness, there were still countless runes flashing. These runes formed a complete cultivation technique. Every rune is filled with endless profoundness. If I were to completely comprehend a single rune, it would take me a very long time. Comprehending those countless runes once would take far more than 5 years. Dongbui Shuang thought to himself. Therefore, I instinctively rejected this method. I have always been worried that I do not have enough time. 5 years is too short. Therefore, I would only try to comprehend every single rune, combining the profoundness of the runes to comprehend the entire cultivation technique. Dongbui Shuang sensed the countless runes. Perhaps I should focus on one rune. The first character. Dongbui Shuang used all of his consciousness to sense the first rune of this technique. The symbol's radiance flickered, fluctuating, incomparably profound. Dongbui Shuang studied the runes attentively, comprehending all the ripples and mysteries contained in the runes. Gradually, he gained some understanding in his heart, and in the end, he managed to form a technique of his own. He can actually form a technique after thoroughly comprehending a single character. Dongbui Shuang opened his eyes in shock. However, it did take a long time for him to fully comprehend a single rune. It took him a full 3 months. At this rate, he would only be able to comprehend 7 more characters in less than 2 years. Let's see if I can control the black gourd. Dongbui Shuang waved his hand and the black gourd appeared on the table once more. He willed it. Immediately, a white character formed from luminous sun force flew out. However, it was different from the large number of characters in the past. This time, only a single character was formed. However, this character was clearly much larger and more profound. When the rune flew into the black gourd, it was silently incinerated by the terrifying power within. I failed. Dongbui Shuang was startled. I don't have any other methods. Let's continue. Dongbui Shuang closed his eyes. Having failed thousands of times previously, he kept the black gourd and continued to comprehend the second character. The second character was also flickering, emitting mysterious ripples. He studied it carefully. The more he comprehended, the more he realized that there were many similarities between the second character and the first character. After all, it was the same type of character. Thus, the speed of his comprehension was much faster. In just a month, he had completely comprehended the second character. There seems to be a mistake in my comprehension of the first character. After Dongbui Shuang comprehended the second character, he started to have doubts about his comprehension of the first character. He immediately modified it and formed a brand new technique. Wang. When he executed this technique, a white character was formed as well. However, it still failed to enter the black gourd. Dongbui Shuang had failed on the first path. Right now, he had already decided on the second path. After all, he had no other choice. He spent 20 days on the third character. He realized that there were still some mistakes in his comprehension. He tried to modify it again, but to no avail. He spent 15 days on the fourth character. He spent 12 days on the fifth character. He spent 11 days on the sixth character. He spent 10 days on the seventh character. He spent 10 days on the eighth character. Every single time, Shuang would alter his original comprehension. Even though he would always fail in forming the white characters, he had an indescribable feeling that he had found the correct path, and that he was nearing success in modifying the technique. One must know. In the first 3 years, he had comprehended a new technique. He had comprehended thousands of techniques, but they were all wrong. Now that he was studying each character, he was able to comprehend the same technique. However, there seemed to be some mistakes and he had to modify them. A thick layer of snow covered the entire mountain range, including the mountain peak where Shuang was cultivating in seclusion. Dongbui Shuang pushed open the bamboo door, pushing the snow away. Stepping on the thick snow, he left behind deep footprints. He walked to the cliff and sat down cross-legged. He sat on the soft snow and closed his eyes to continue comprehending. He was already used to comprehending the techniques left behind by the Voidwalkers. However, he would often change his location. Sometimes, he would go to the lake at the foot of the mountain. Sometimes, he would sit on a thick ancient tree branch. However, most of the time, he would stay in the bamboo house or the cliff. The 51st character, Dongbui Shuang sensed the golden characters that appeared in his sea of consciousness. He was trying to comprehend the 51st character. This time, it was much shorter. He finished comprehending it in 8 days. He then made some slight modifications to the technique that he had comprehended. That's right. Dongbui Shuang waved his hand. The black gourd appeared on top of the snow. Following which, his luminous sun force flew out and condensed into a character. When the character was condensed, it was white. Suddenly, a formless ripple flowed within the character. As the ripple flowed, the character's color changed rapidly. First, it turned pale gold. Then, it turned golden. A golden character floated in front of him. Dongbui Shuang was stunned. His heartbeat quickened. This was the first time such a strange scene had appeared. He was filled with anticipation. This time, it might be different. Who? The golden character seeped into the black gourd. Wang, it was as though a key had been inserted into the keyhole. The original spirit designs within the black gourd immediately began to circulate. A formless energy started to form, enveloping and controlling the incomparably hot fireball within the black gourd. The size of this fireball was extremely huge. It was comparable to the sun star. Its power was also incomparably strong. The flames it emitted contained a destructive power. However, the formless energy within the black gourd had completely enveloped this fireball. No matter how strong the fireball was, it was unable to incinerate this formless energy. So heavy. Dongbui Shuang could feel the incomparably heavy weight of this fireball. In fact, the formless pressure had even seeped into his true deity heart, causing it to tremble slightly. It was like a weak child trying to lift a stone block. It was too heavy. The difference between their levels was too great. It was too strenuous to control it. However, Dongbui Shuang had a feeling that if he were to forcefully control it, he should be able to control a strand of this terrifying fireball. This was already the limit that his true deity heart could withstand. Even if it was just a strand of energy, it would be sufficient to instantly kill him. Congratulations, congratulations. You have finally comprehended the technique to control a protective treasure. I'm getting anxious. If you fail, I would have to wait again. I really wonder how many epochs I would have to wait for the next one with potential. The child wearing the red dudu appeared on top of the black gourd. The red dudu child was extremely happy. Chapter 7:11. Dongbua Shuang grabbed the black gourd with one hand and sensed the mystical array within it. The array had completely enveloped the incomparably powerful fireball. The array is the core of the black gourd. With just this array, I can easily control the sun star. As he sensed, the array was vast and mysterious. It was even more mysterious than the countless worlds in the material realm. It was even more powerful than the hundreds of millions of meteorites in the Lake Heart Island. The level was too high. With the help of the technique left behind by the Voidwalkers, he could barely control a trace of its power. When Dongbua Shuang tried to control the power within the black gourd. Instantly, a terrifying ripple began to accumulate within the black gourd. The formless pressure that the fireball exerted on the true deity heart was increasing rapidly. It was like a huge boulder placed there. It would be fine if one did not move it, but if one tried to move it, the pressure would be too great. Stop, stop, stop. Hurry up and stop. The red undergarment child on top of the black gourd sensed what was happening and hurriedly tried to stop him. What's wrong? Dongbua Shuang hurriedly stopped. Beads of perspiration appeared on his forehead. You sure have guts. The weapon spirit, the red undergarment child, said, you have just grasped this technique and know nothing about the black gourd. Yet, you are already controlling its power. I'm just trying. Dongbua Shuang felt an itch in his heart. After all, this was the most terrifying power he had ever controlled. He even had a feeling that if he could control this power, he would be able to face the tyrannical primordial demon head-on. Although he was only controlling a trace of the power, it was still so vast and shocking. Listen to me first. The red undergarment child said helplessly, you have only passed the second trial. There is still the final and most important trial, to refine the black gourd within 1,000,000 years. You have yet to refine it. You are not even a new Voidwalker. Do you think that old fellow would allow you to control the black gourd so easily? Dongbua Shuang was stunned. Only then did he realize that although he had the black gourd, he had yet to refine it. If he could not refine it within 1,000,000 years, the black gourd would automatically leave. You didn't refine it. You just used the technique to forcefully control it. You can feel it, right? Just sensing it brings about great pressure. Once you start trying to control it, the pressure will be even stronger, right? The red undergarment child said. Dongbua Shuang nodded his head. You haven't truly used it yet. The moment you do, the level of this fireball's strength is too high. Even a trace of its strength will cause your true deity heart to suffer a backlash. Even if you have a technique to control it, based on the strength of my understanding of your true deity heart, the injuries to your true deity heart will require 10,000 years to recover, said the red undergarment child. Using it once will require 10,000 years. What kind of injury would take so long? Dongbua Shuang was puzzled. He had guessed that he would be injured if he were to forcefully control it. But even if he split his soul into two to cultivate his clone, he would be able to recover in a short period of time. Why would it take 10,000 years for his soul to be injured? If you want to leave this world, you'll have to use the black gourd. Won't you know when you experience it for yourself? The red undergarment child said. Fortunately, your cultivation of the heart is not bad. If your cultivation of the heart was too low, forcefully controlling it might cause your soul to collapse. Dongbua Shuang let out a sigh of relief. No wonder he had to obtain the black gourd. It was so powerful that if he couldn't withstand it, he wouldn't be able to control it at all. In that case, if I were to refine the black gourd, I wouldn't suffer a backlash, right? Dongbua Shuang asked. Once you refine it, you will become the master of the black gourd. It will be your protective treasure. Naturally, it won't harm you, the red undergarment child said. Dongbua Shuang nodded. That was good. If he were to use it once in the future, he would be injured for 10,000 years. That would be too pitiful. However, it was still too early to think about this. After all, refining the black gourd within 1,000,000 years was no easy task. Without a specialized technique, not even hegemons would be able to control it. One could imagine how difficult it would be to refine it. I still have 1,000,000 years. Dongbu Shuang wasn't in a rush. When are you preparing to leave this world? The red undergarment child asked. I'll be able to leave as long as I use the black gourd. I've accepted a disciple in this world. I can't just ignore him like this, Dongbu Shuang said. Once you leave, you won't be able to return unless you become a voidwalker, the red undergarment child said. That's right, it's very likely that I won't be able to see that disciple of mine again. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Little Seventh had been with him since he was 6 years old. 1,000 years had passed. Naturally, Dongbu Shuang had deep feelings for his disciple, Dongbu Shuang. Chung family. Currently, the status of the Chung family was slightly different. That was because the strongest existence in this world, world deity Feishua, was once a guest elder of their clan. Moreover, he was also the master of the clan's 7th prince, Chong Yen. Even the 3 holy lands didn't dare to bully the Chung family in the slightest. They were afraid of angering the powerful and terrifying world deity Feishua. It's been almost 5 years, but Master still hasn't returned. Seated in front of a study table, Little Seventh held a sword arts book in his hands. However, his mind wasn't on the book. I heard from my father that it's very likely that Master will leave this world, never to return. Little Seventh felt somewhat sad in his heart. It can't be that he won't even see him one last time before leaving, right? When he was 6 years old. He was still young and naive. When he first saw Dongbu Shuaying's sword arts, he cried and begged to take him as his master. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed. The time he spent with his master was even more than the time he spent with his father. Thinking that his master might not return, Little Seventh naturally felt sad and unwilling. Who? A figure appeared in the study. Dongbu Shuang looked at the white-robed young man who was in a daze and chuckled, Little Seventh. Little Chong Seven abruptly turned his head and saw the black-clothed young man behind him. Although his appearance had changed slightly and was only 60 to 70% similar to before, Little Chong Seven did not doubt the familiar aura and the familiar smile. After all, the appearance of an expert could easily change. He hastily put down the book and quickly stood up. He said happily, Master. Prepare yourself. From tomorrow onwards, you will follow me to roam this world. Dongbu Shuang said. Little Seventh's eyes brightened. He thought that his master would leave after saying a few words. And now, he was even bringing him to roam the world? Yes. Little Seventh immediately acknowledged. On the second day, under the warm send-off of Chongsher forefather, Dongbu Shuang brought his disciple Little Seventh to roam this world. Even after coming to this world for so long, he had yet to properly observe this vast world. Since Little Seventh was weak and had cultivated for a short period of time, the places he had been to were even lesser. The two of them roamed the world. Along the way, Dongbu Shuang would secretly guide his disciple in his cultivation. He would even purposely assign some tasks to him. Naturally, he did not need much time to guide his disciple. 99% of his time was still spent on refining the black gourd. As time passed, 13,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hong, a white-robed young man, sat cross-legged by the lake. Above him was an incomparably huge illusion of an ocean that spanned hundreds of millions of kilometers. Beside him stood a black-robed young man. He was none other than Dongbu Shuang. He has finally become a world deity. Dongbu Shuang nodded slightly. Seeing his disciple become a world deity, he felt relieved. After a long time. After breaking through, Little Seventh stood up. His face was filled with joy. Dongbu Shuang tapped with his finger. A stream of light flew out and entered between Little Seventh's eyebrows. A large amount of information flowed in. It was the detailed analysis of the other Grade 1 deity hearts. It was also Dongbu Shui Ying's understanding and mastery of these Grade 1 deity hearts. He was imparting them to his disciple. "Thank you, Master." Little Seventh regained his consciousness and said, "You comprehended the splitting heaven deity heart on your own. I have also imparted you the guidance of the other 8 Grade 1 deity hearts. From now on, your cultivation will depend on yourself." Dongbu Shuang said as he took out a storage wristband and handed it over. "There are some external items in this wristband. They will be helpful to your cultivation. Of course, your Chung family has a deep foundation. I believe your father will do his best to nurture you. These external items are just a small token of my appreciation." "Yes." Little Seventh received the storage wristband. His eyes were slightly moist. He understood that they were finally parting. "You are already a world deity. If you become an almighty, your lifespan will be even longer. If there's a chance in the future, we might meet again." Dongbu Shuang said, "There's one more thing that I have to tell you before I leave." Little Seventh was stunned. "I, your master, came from the outer universe." Dongbu Shuang smiled. "My real name is Dongbu Shuang." "From the outer universe?" Little Seventh was slightly stunned. "Let's part ways here." Dongbu Shuang smiled and teleported away. "Master!" Little Seventh could not help but shout. He looked around and understood that his master had really left. "Master?" Dongbu Shuang. Little Seventh muttered. High up in the sky. Dongbu Shuang was still trying to refine the black gourd in his hand. "You've parted with your disciple, right? Are you preparing to leave?" The red undergarment child appeared on top of the black gourd. "There's one more thing that I haven't done." Dongbu Shuang smiled. "There are so many absolute arts in this world. If I were to leave just like that, I would regret it. There are very few absolute arts in the outer universe." Chapter 7:12. The red undergarment child said solemnly, "I have to remind you that this world was left behind by that old fogey, the Voidwalker. The earliest life forms in this world were actually from your cosmos. It was that old fogey who sent the first batch of humans here." Dongbu Shuang nodded. He had also heard of a legend in this world. It was said that at the beginning of the world, a group of humans descended along with an ancient shrine. Listening to the words of the weapon spirit, this was indeed the case. That old fogey, the Voidwalker, came to your cosmos and roamed around. While hiding his strength, he befriended a good friend. The two of them had an extremely good relationship. That friend of his eventually died before he could transcend as a stage 4 world deity. The red undergarment child sighed. Before he died, the Voidwalker told his friend about his identity. The Voidwalker tried his best to help him, but his friend still failed to transcend. Before his death, the Voidwalker wished for the people of his hometown to live a peaceful and happy life. Thus, the Voidwalker left behind a world and moved his friend's entire tribe into this world. There would be no external enemies. At the same time, he left behind many cultivation techniques and absolute arts. The red undergarment child said, at the same time, he left behind an order. You are not to bring the life forms here away. As for the absolute arts of this world, if they are unique, you are not to bring them away either. So that's how it is. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. A few epochs have passed. His friend's tribe would have probably been wiped out by the end of an epoch. Currently, the humans of this world are existences from the epochs after that. Thus, if you were to become a Voidwalker, you would be able to decide how to deal with them. The red undergarment child laughed. Since you have yet to pass the test, you naturally do not have the authority to deal with them. Dongbu Shuang understood. If I can't bring the unique copy away, then I can bring away the non-unique ones, right? Dongbu Shuang asked. Yes. The red undergarment child nodded. Dongbu Shuang smiled. That was not bad. After all, as long as one completely learned an absolute art, they would be able to create their own original copy. Just like how he had mastered the 6 sever sword styles, he could easily create another original copy. After a few epochs in this world, there were indeed a few absolute arts that had more than one original copy. Sky Fire Palace. Boom! Dongba Shuang transformed into a dazzling beam of light and flew at high speed. His body was surrounded by lightning and fire as he charged into the main hall of the Sky Fire Palace. With such great fanfare, the 2 Sky Fire Palace masters naturally knew about it immediately. It's Universe God Feishuek. He is Universe God Feishuek. The entire Sky Fire Palace was in a state of anxiety. Those powerful existences could only watch from afar, not daring to intervene. Logically speaking, powerful existences were stronger than world deities. However, world deity Feishue had changed this common sense. This was a heaven-defying world deity. Feihua Palace Master, Paragon Kenhuang and the others couldn't even withstand a single move from this existence. Even the Golden Fire Palace Master and the others were at a disadvantage. Rumor had it that he could teleport and kill whoever he wanted to. The reason why the 5 venerables from the 3 sanctuaries stayed together was because they were worried that they would be defeated one by one. It could be seen how powerful Universe God Feishue was. Universe God Feishue, I wonder why you are here at my Sky Fire Palace? Suddenly, 2 illusory figures appeared. They were the Golden Fire Palace Master and Feihua Palace Master. However, they were incarnations that descended through karma. Their original bodies and incarnations weren't in the Sky Fire Palace. Feihua Palace Master's expression was complicated. After all, it was said that he was stabbed to death by Universe God Feishue. Who? The other 3 illusory figures appeared too. They were the other 3 venerables. Now, the 5 venerables of this world had descended with their incarnations. Universe God Feishue, you said that you would leave after 10,000 years. It has already been 13,000 years. Paragon Emperor Su said. The 5 venerables stared at Dongba Shuang. When are you leaving? Don't worry. My disciple has become a universe god. It's time for me to leave. Dongba Shuang said, however, before this, there are many absolute skills in this world that I haven't seen before. Hence, I need to look for the original copy. Don't tell me you want to take the absolute skill away. The Golden Fire Palace Master said angrily, the original copy of the absolute skill is passed down from generation to generation. If you take it away, what will the later generations learn? The other 4 venerables were furious too. Of course, it was just an act on the surface. The Golden Fire Palace Master was truly worried about the later generations. As for Paragon Emperor Su and Spectre Prefecture Master, they didn't really care. As long as they were strong, they wouldn't need to care about the cultivation of the later generations. If Dongba Shuang wanted to snatch it away, Emperor Su and the rest wouldn't stop him. Don't worry. If it's the only copy, I won't take it away. If it's not the only copy, then I will take one. Dongba Shuang said. The Golden Fire Palace Master heaved a sigh of relief. The other 4 venerables looked relieved on the surface. In the following days, Shuang had traveled across the 3 great holy grounds and 9 great clans. He had learned all the absolute arts once, and it could be considered as broadening his horizons. Most likely, he was only confident of cultivating the other Tao of Slaughter absolute art, the Great Extinction Scripture. The other absolute skills wouldn't reach great success. At most, he would only reach small success like the Luminous Sun and Extreme Annihilation Mysterious Body. With his current strength, if he didn't reach great success, these absolute skills wouldn't increase his strength. They would only increase his knowledge. Who? A figure appeared in the desolate desert. It was the black-robed Dongba Shuang. Dongba Shuang revealed a smile. I learned the 6 sword styles of Sever and the Great Extinction Scripture. At the same time, I brought 5 original copies of absolute skills. All in all, I have a total of 7 complete absolute skills. Including the first half of the Blood Demon scripture, I have a total of 7 incomplete absolute skills. This was extremely shocking. After all, in the divine world and abyss, only sovereigns would have so many original copies of absolute skills. However, there was a problem with these absolute skills. At the peak, one could only reach the paragon level. One must know that in the divine world and abyss, there were some absolute skills that even sovereigns could cultivate. For example, the complete version of the myriad demon true body was beyond the sovereign level. Clearly, even though the Voidwalkers had left behind many absolute skills, they also believed that the chances of a sovereign being born in this world was extremely low. Thus, they threw away these basic absolute skills. No matter what, it's still 7.5 absolute skills. Dongbua Shuang was in a good mood. In the past, he wanted to give his wife an absolute skill, but he couldn't find a suitable one. But now, he had one. Let's begin. Dongbua Shuang stretched out his hand, and a huge black gourd appeared in his hand. The red Buddha child emerged from the black gourd. Are we leaving this world? Dongbua Shuang nodded. Be careful. It will take 10,000 years for you to recover from the injuries you receive from using it once. The red Buddha child smiled. Let's give it a try. Dongbua Shuang was also filled with anticipation. He stretched out his hand and pulled out the stopper of the black gourd. Paw! The moment the stopper was pulled out, a terrifying wave of heat spread out, causing the desert in front of him to distort. Countless grains of sand melted into particles. Everything around the mouth of the gourd started to distort. The power it exuded was so great that even ordinary paragons with weaker life preservation abilities would be turned into ashes. Only peak paragons would be able to withstand it. I haven't even used it yet. Just pulling out the stopper already exudes such power. Dongbua Shuang sighed inwardly. He then started to execute the technique. His luminous sun force formed a white rune. Light circulated within the rune, and it rapidly turned into a golden rune. This golden rune directly entered the black gourd, and it started to activate the incomparably huge array within the black gourd. Dongbua Shuang was extremely familiar with this array. For the past 13,000 years, he had been pondering on how to refine the black gourd, and had studied this array countless times. Unfortunately, it was simply too vast and complicated. Even now, he had no idea how to do it. He could only use the most basic method to activate the array, and he started to activate the terrifying fireball's might. This caused an immense pressure on Dongbua Shuang's soul. Go! He gritted his teeth. Hong! Suddenly, a blurry ripple surged out from the mouth of the gourd. This black ripple was somewhat similar to the sun ripple within the sun star. However, the sun ripple came from the depths of the sun star. Like the void black soil layer, only rulers could withstand the power of the sun star. Of course, Paragon Huacheng and Monarch Green, who specialized in the Tao of Fire, could also withstand it. However, the sun star's core, had an even more terrifying ripple. Even rulers could not withstand it. And now, the ripple that surged out from the mouth of the black gourd was precisely the ripple of the fireball. Although it was just an external ripple, it was bound together by the even more terrifying array within the black gourd, allowing it to surge out through the mouth of the gourd. One must know that a fully dispersed sun ripple was already that terrifying. Now, under the control of the array, the ripple that surged out through the mouth of the gourd was even more terrifying. Black ripples surged out from the mouth of the gourd, spreading out in a fan shape. The power was so great that it could cause even rulers' expressions to change. Selah, the terrifying might caused a huge tear to appear in this incomparably stable world. Retrieve. Dongbua Shuang endured the pain in his head. He no longer dared to forcefully endure it. He immediately stopped the array, and instantly, the black ripple that surged out from the mouth of the gourd disappeared. Dongbua Shuang plugged the stopper, and the huge tear in the world in front of him gradually closed up. Outside the tear, he could see countless streams of liquid flowing outside. Let's go. Grabbing the black gourd, Dongbu Shuang rushed into the tear in the world membrane. As the tear completely closed up, Dongbu Shuang disappeared from this world. Chapter 7:13. From a raging river in the void, a black-robed figure flew out. I'm out. Looking at the hundreds of billions of miles-long void river in front of him, Dongbu Shuang sighed. No matter how hard he tried to use the mirage world to sense it, he was still unable to find that hidden world within the void river. Stop looking. You only had the chance to enter after obtaining the star map. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to find that world even if you searched for an entire epoch. The voice of the red undergarment child was transmitted into Dongbu Shuaying's mind. You better think of a way to refine the black gourd within 1,000,000 years. If you can't refine it, I can only leave. I understand. Dongbu Shuang frowned as he rubbed his head. Pain. Waves of pain could be felt as the black aura seeped into his true deity heart. His originally glass-like body was now filled with a faint black aura, causing him to feel pain at every moment. I can only slowly consume it. It would indeed take about 10,000 years for this black aura to diminish. Dongbu Shuang could feel the rate at which the black aura in his true deity heart was being consumed. Dongbu Shuang, this is just a small backlash. Before you fully recover, you must not use it a second time. If you do so, the backlash will be even more severe. Your soul might not be able to withstand it and collapse. The red undergarment child transmitted a message to remind him. You are also quite impressive. I have placed you in my Eden treasure and you are still able to transmit a message to me easily. Dongbu Shuang replied with a smile. Although he was in constant pain, he had experienced the torture of the 6 ghosts' resentment when he was young. Thus, he was naturally able to speak in a jovial manner. It is just a Eden treasure. It can't restrict me at all. Even the famous Lake Heart Island and 6 paths Tianluan of your cosmos are things that I can enter and leave whenever I want. The red undergarment child was incomparably confident. As long as you are unable to refine me within 1,000,000 years, no matter where you hide me or who helps you, I will be able to leave easily. I believe you, I believe you. Dongbu Shuang smiled and said nothing more. What he trusted was not the spirit, but the Voidwalker. The fact that the Voidwalker was able to refine the solar star into a gourd and turn it into a protective treasure was enough to make Dongbu Shuang look up to him. After all, according to the legends, even the Lake Heart Island master, the demon ancestor, who was the strongest in the many eras, could not do anything to the sun star and the moon star. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, Dongbu Shuang tore open a space-time tunnel and began his return journey. Swoosh! Black Mist Sea, the Emperor's residence. Dongbu Shuang appeared high up in the sky. Instinctively, his senses enveloped the entire mansion, and he found his wife, Ying. Dongbu Shuang temporarily tossed these thoughts to the back of his mind. He was still very open-minded. It was enough for him to cherish the time they had together. How could there be anything in this world that was perfect? Ying opened her eyes and looked to her side. When she saw the most important man in her life, she could not help but smile. Snow Eagle, you're back. You said before that you were in closed-door cultivation, and that I wouldn't disturb you unless there's something important. How is it? Did you gain anything? Yes. Dongbu Shuang smiled and nodded. My gains are quite great. His gains this time were indeed great. It allowed him to gain enough power to fight against sovereigns. It was a pity that he had yet to refine it, and could only use it once every 10,000 years. Right, Ying, I discovered that Brother Persei is also in the residence? Dongbu Shuang asked in surprise. He's only been here for half a year. Ying kept her divine sword and stood up. He came to visit you. When he found out that you weren't around, he planned to leave. I know that you have a deep friendship with him, and that you've mentioned him many times, so I persuaded him to stay in the residence. Dongbu Shuang nodded. You did the right thing. After he left the Xia people's world and entered the deity world, his rise was extremely fast. He became a disciple of the God Emperor, became a stage 4 world deity, and even opened up 2 das. Now, he was one of the 3 ancestors. Dongbu Shuang had long since ordered people to investigate his good friends, especially Persei, Meishan Master, and Kenhuang. After all, the difference in strength between them was too great. Dongbu Shuang did not know what to say when they met. Just reminiscing about the past? That would only add to the awkwardness. Thus, he only ordered people to help Persei and the others in the dark, especially since the Meishan Master and the others were reincarnators of the temporal temple. Even if he were to help them in the dark, he had to be more cautious. Brother Persei has finally become a world deity. Dongbu Shuang also understood the reason why Persei did not come to meet him despite his fame. In the past, Persei was just one of the countless deities in the vast deity world. Thus, he had never come to meet him. But now, he had already broken through to become a world deity. World deities were still quite rare. In every starfield, the number of world deities could be counted with one's fingers. Their lifespan was also around 10 billion years. Persei's state of mind was different. Naturally, he could come to meet him calmly. Jing Qiu, I'll go meet Brother Persei first. After that, I have some matters to discuss with you in detail. Dongbu Shuang said. Hurry up and go meet your good brother. We have plenty of time. Jing Qiu smiled as she urged him. Dongbu Shuang took a step and disappeared. He immediately went to meet Brother Persei, whom he had not met for 10 million years. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.